How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses. I forgot to move the microphone on VGWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Still.
Venerian.
And Volacel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. But first of all, if you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server and communicate with the show hosts and other listeners to the show anytime you like, and you can most easily get to that Discord server by clicking in the link, which should be included in the description underneath the archive of this show on YouTube, or alternatively, you can go to VGWProductions.com and click on the show logo on any of our show posts.
Yes, indeed.
And the microphone is now where it's supposed to be for showtime.
All right.
Totally free.
So
I totally forgot to move it.
on the stream today, because I couldn't honestly think of anything at the last second, because I kind of got in with like 5 minutes to go for showtime because work happened. I'm just going to do some mindless grinding in Black Desert.
You should have, if you let me know before the show that you needed somebody to fill it, I should have totally hooked up the capture card and played Maneater while we were doing the show.
Damn, that would have been a good idea. Oh well, too late now.
Maneater?
It's a game made in Georgia where you're a shark that eats people.
There's so many games like that though. Most of them are awful.
But this one's open world.
Oh dear. I think I've actually seen that played somewhere.
It's getting decent reviews for a dumb shark game.
So yeah, I had absolutely no real plans as to what I'm going to be doing in Black Desert, so I'm probably just going to grind my Berserker for a bit.
Implying that there's anything else that you can do in Black Desert.
You can do PvP.
Yeah, if you happen to be at the absolute top of the gear curve.
Yeah, if you aren't, you can try to PvP and you will fail. Like,
I really wanted to like that game, I did.
The combat system is so great, but once you get to the max levels, well, there is no max level actually, it just keeps on going with increasingly steep XP curves.
If you don't have somebody to play bodyguard to you, you can't really play that game at the top end.
Yeah, it's not that bad anymore. Like all the PvP is more or less confined to one server. Unless you don't have a guild. In which case, you may as well put a big sign on your head saying, gank me, there's no consequences. Because otherwise you end up with, war declarations, and that can put penalties on your guild. Or you can just end up with a massive fight in the middle of a field somewhere.
Yeah, I found that was more or less the scenario in Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the extent to which you were in danger in any given region was based entirely on the consequences, the geopolitical consequences of somebody attempting to gank you.
Yeah, like you could go into a mining vessel, go out into who knows where and mine something valuable, but if you do and you're not backed up by a fleet, you're going to get exploded. So good luck with that.
You can still do the difference though is that you can still do the business in Eve in secure areas if you are sufficiently skilled at manipulating markets, because understanding your market forces is so staggeringly important there. Like it blows understanding how World of Warcraft markets work out of the water.
Oh yeah, Black Desert Online you can do that to the same to an extent. Unfortunately, though, the developer always kind of has a thumb on the scale somewhere. You can't, or they don't allow a given resource or a given item to exceed a certain price on the market.
Yeah,
that bracket will shift over time until it reaches their hard cap. At which point they just stop. It stops. It can't get any more pricey, even if the demand is there to support.
I don't know how well that works. I don't really have a good overall view. You do tend to find that that markets in MMOs tend to not model real markets very well after a certain point and before a certain point, because of the fact that there's no real world consequences to anything that you do there. So people will take bigger risks and behave in a more irrational fashion. Such as interacting with the market with no research at length, which is what crippled the market in the early stages of WildStar
Yeah.
because people were just putting things up for ridiculously low prices just to move them.
Yeah, so, and I know we both did this to a degree, is you could just go into the market, pick just about any resource, buy it all up, stick it back on there, and make a very tidy profit. Because nobody researched how much that thing was actually worth.
Well, that was the thing, is that worked for the first day, but after that, the volume on there was so high that you would not be able to flip anything for a profit in time, and it became much more efficient to buy everything that you could afford and sell it to the vendor.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, you could make even more money doing that too. Like you go
They
in there,
did
you just
they
buy
did
up
try to
any weapons.
stop it. Like they emergency patched in a readout showing what the price floor was for an
Yeah.
item,
Didn't stop people.
and it didn't stop people
It
at all,
didn't stop
despite the
anyone.
fact that the information was right in front of them.
Yeah, they put up a big prompt saying if you sell this at this price, you will be selling it for less than you can get from a vendor for it. Are you really sure you want to do this?
It's not terribly clever.
Yeah.
Oh
So-
man, I see these people riding around on their Rathaloses, and I feel so jelly.
I'm pretty sure that's still in the game. I hope it's still.
I thought it was a limited time event. I don't, and they usually bring them back periodically, but I don't think it's in the game right now. I think you might be able to do the quest.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if it drops or not. I'll have to look at the list. It's a trial, right?
It is a trial, yeah.
I don't know what it's called
I
though.
forget what it was called.
No, I don't see it here.
It's
So
it's something Crimson Eyes in the Sky or something like that.
I might have to try and unlock it. I don't know. If any of you guys would ever play with me, maybe we would be able to do it. But
Yeah, time is a pain.
yeah, goodness knows I've noticed that this week.
So, for the extent of my gaming the last week and a bit, I suppose, has really just been chipping away at the latest expansion for Terraria, which added Master Mode, which is brutal. Very, very brutal.
Brutal in what way?
Brutal in the way that it's... From base mode, it triples the health of every enemy, and then adds a damage debuff upon you. So you take a lot more damage.
So what was the time to kill originally?
Depending on what... Well, let's do something... Eye of Cthulhu, if at gear. Normal mode, you can kill it pretty easily in maybe a minute, honestly. It's weak as all get out. Expert mode, probably close to about 5 minutes, depending on how good you are and how willing you are to get hit. Master mode, you're probably going to be looking at closer to 10 minutes. And that also is capped off by a DPS race at the end, where sooner or later you're just going to get hit.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like 10 minutes is pushing your luck in usability a bit for games that are single player.
I may have been a tad undergeared when I did it. So, yeah, it's a bit steep. Like, even the green slime, the absolute weakest enemy in the game, really, can wreck your face when you just freshly start out. They cease to be an issue as soon
Everybody
as you
knows
get
that
a little bit.
slimes are the most harmless creature, right?
Yeah, slimes are jerks. So I get the
I was
impression...
attempting to refer to Konosuba
Konosuba, yes.
in the second season, where Kazuma goes through the entire time assuming that the enemy being a slime means that it's going to be weak.
Oh, Kazuma, you should know better. So yeah, I get the impression that Master Mode is really meant to be played multiplayer. You can play Expert Mode just fine on single player, although it will kick you up and down if you're not expecting new boss mechanics. Master Mode, no. Things just take too long to kill, honestly. But that said, they've also done a big balance patch on everything, so a lot of stuff is a bit more fair. Although they've also cut out a few of the early game shortcuts you used to be able to get. Before you could go run into the corruption with a fresh character and a couple of bombs, blow up one of the cores, get a meteor, and suddenly have a very, very good set of gear. Or you could run around, collect some worms, fish in the ocean for maybe 20 minutes, and have gear from the dungeon, which is like end of easy mode tier gear, in probably about half an hour. You're not supposed to be able to do that.
I think I'm going to have to actually play Terraria at some point. I think I do own it, but I just don't understand anything that you're saying.
Yeah, it's Metroidvania-ish cross Minecraft-ish for those who've never played it.
It's
So-
Minecraft, but 2D.
Yeah.
Well, it always sounded to me like there's actually stuff to do in Terraria, whereas I find that there's not stuff to do in Minecraft.
Minecraft.
Like
has
in
what,
Minecraft,
2
you have to make
bosses?
your own fun.
When it first launched, Terraria was pretty simple. There was like 4 bosses. I think King Slime was in there. And that was it. Once you defeated those 4 bosses, that was the end of the game, really. Now, you add 2 more bosses to that, and that's easy mode. And which is maybe, I'd say probably maybe 1/5 of the game. Depending on how you want to slice it. So yeah, you beat those 5 bosses, the final one being the Wall of Flesh in Hell, because of course it is.
Well, that sounds savoury.
Yeah, it's literal hell. There's imps and demons and horrible, nasty things down there, and the whole place is on fire. So you have fun.
What
But
could possibly
why?
go wrong?
Because
can we go?
reasons. From-
Can we dig below hell? Do we get to super hell?
There's actually a few mods that do that, but no. Once you do that, the world goes under a massive overhaul, and it just puts a big X across the whole world map. One line being corruption, the other being hallow, which is purity. The hallow is not nice. If anything, the hallow is actually harder than the corrupted area. From there, then you beat a few more bosses, including massive souped-up bosses of the original 3. And then into the jungle, more bosses in there, and from there you suddenly end up unlocking a second dungeon, go back into the first dungeon again. It just keeps going and going. Every time you think you've reached a limit, it'll suddenly say, nope, here's a world shift, there's more, keep going.
Man.
By the way, all your gear is now trash.
I remember when we played it. We played it when it first came out, Fern.
Mhm.
We built a house, and you were talking about maybe getting to a first boss, and I got distracted building the house.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we got.
A lot of the time, the houses were basically, we're going to just build a human filing cabinet.
Yeah, we built a square, and that
Yeah.
square was subdivided into more squares. And
Yeah.
in each square, we put like a chair, because she told me like an NPC could come to the chair or something.
You need a chair and a table and a light source in an enclosed room, and that will get an NPC.
Yeah, so we built a giant office space and called it a base. And I got way too into this while you were trying to talk about bosses and the actual point of the game. And that's as far as we got.
Yeah. Didn't even get to fight the first boss.
No, we got distracted with me building the house.
So yeah, there is a lot of content there, and it is a lot of fun with other players, especially if you're all kind of spread out and pick different builds for your characters. I would recommend, if you're going into the game, don't pick Summoner as your first play through. Even though they've upgraded it a fair bit, you just do way less damage. At least until
None of
Does
this.
later on.
Does it scale up later?
It does. Once you start getting much better gear, like you don't actually get any proper summoner gear until you beat the bee boss. In which case you get the bee armor and the bee gun and the bee grenades and everything's bees and bees and bees.
Not the bees.
Bees, but then after that, even though they have, like I said, they've added a new weapon class, particularly for summoners, you kind of fall behind the curve again. And that's only on easy mode. Once you unlock hard mode and go through the first world shift, you're way behind the curve again. Thankfully,
Fabulous.
after that for a bit, you get the next set of gear, which I think was Spider, I believe, after that. Then you kind of keep pace with everyone else from that point on.
What was that one Terraria-like game that we played, Fern? Where I built the Fluffalo farm.
Oh, that's Starbound.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is that one still being updated?
I think they've actually called it done now.
Right.
game
do you
was-
do you reckon one or the other is significantly better?
Starbound has the Fluffalo farm.
Starbound does have Fluffalo farms.
That took me 3 days to build, by the way.
I'm in the wrong place here. I should not be here. Honestly, I think Terraria stays on point a lot better than Starbound does, but Starbound has an actual story running through it. So, yeah.
And there's a Fluffalo farm that I spent 3 days working on.
Terraria's strengths, I think, is also really what takes away from Starbound, which Starbound actually puts up as a big gimmick, and that's the world. Terraria, you're on one world which keeps shifting and changing, but it's ultimately the same world. So what you build and what you explore is still going to be there, although some of it might change color and end up with other monsters through it. Whereas Starbound, you're constantly shifting or changing planets, and everywhere you go is completely new, but it also still looks the same as everywhere else.
So what you're saying is we need to build No Excuses corporate headquarters in Terraria because it'll always be there.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless we build it, in the wrong place, in which case it's either going to be corrupted or blessed.
Well, in Starbound, the planets are smaller than probably all of Terraria's one world. If you put all the planets in Starbound together, they equate to Terraria's world.
Oh, no,
but it makes it...
No,
but it's...
planets in Starbound are a different size.
Yeah,
And the biggest one would probably be about the equivalent to a large world in Terraria.
So, the point is, you can go to a small world, completely turn that entire world into a Fluffalo farm, and that is now the Fluffalo world.
Mm-hmm.
But in Terraria, it seems like the map always seems to go on forever whenever I'm playing a Terraria map.
Nah, it's got limits. Once you hit the ocean at each end, that's it. It stops.
Can you build a bridge across the entire ocean?
No. You swim out and you'll eventually hit the edge of the screen.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's better than dying of fatigue.
Well, generally you'll end up getting eaten by sharks and drowning. Whatever happens first.
I didn't know Maneater had a crossover with Terraria.
Yeah. There is, however, a... Excuse me, I'm just choking now. That's fun.
Don't die of burn.
There are two bosses in the ocean. The Duke Fishron and the Dread Nautilus. So, have fun with those.
Who named that?
I don't know. It is a pun. It is a Nautilus. It's a giant Ammonite thing.
I don't know. I kind of approve.
It is.
I think that the Dread Nautilus is actually a cool name for a boss.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been my experience. It is still a very fun game. The amount of content they've added, even since this new expansion, is just idiotic. You get something like 1,000 new items, a lot of which are based into overhauling and balancing, adding a new food system, adding a new housing system, things like that. I have no idea where the game actually expands, and if it expands from the end, which I believe was Moonlord before. I'm not sure if there's something after that.
Why are there a bunch of giant naked rabbit people in the whatever the gambling place is?
Reasons.
The Golden Salt.
Yeah, just reasons.
They're just running around.
So, yeah,
that was just your status update for Final Fantasy XIV.
And naked rabbit people everywhere. Ah, why? I hate this prompt. So yeah, in BDO actually, I hit my Berserker to level 50 recently. So every time I go into a town, it comes up with this stupid broken window. There. I think I managed to actually hit the prompt that time. Alright, so Vol, what have you been up to, sir?
Well, I had maintained a vain hope that things might get back to normal. Yeah, that didn't happen. So basically, we're work-wise, I'm currently in the scenario where everybody's going back to work, but it's not just us going back to work. It's everybody, including all the people whose equipment shut down so they couldn't maintain their compliance and are now recommissioning everything. And that is just really, really dragging on. So I'm having to work long hours, but at least it's, all legitimately overtime now. They aren't going to start whining and complaining that I'm clocking up overtime because they need the work done. Also, the other thing about recommissioning work is that as time goes on, it gets faster and faster to do because theoretically their testing should get cleaner and cleaner. Theoretically.
In
Because
theory.
unless it reaches a minimum standard of clean for a minimum number of sequential testings, they won't be able to start operation. So they have a very strong incentive to be very, very clean, and clean plates can be read by looking at them and saying it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
So
Barring someone
I'm
doing
hoping
something
that,
stupid.
yeah, unfortunately that hasn't been the case because I'm pretty sure that while the testing should be starting to converge on clean, there have been some contamination problems over in the next door room, and so I end up having to count plates that ideally should be clean and stuff. Anyway, I think that might be the issue, but I think that'll also be solved very shortly. We've just been doing dumb stuff with backlogged supplies like 90 ml bottles of media and stuff that we've got to use up. 90 mils is not very much. That's enough to like pour 5 petri dishes or something.
It's a tiny amount.
So, yeah.
Yeah, how long does media stay considered sterile anyway?
Depends on the conditions that it's kept at. It's different for every media.
Right.
You've got a recommended 3 to 4 hour window to use VRBA, for instance. There's violet red bile agar. It's not considered to be much good after that because the components are somewhat labile.
Right.
Other more simple, straightforward media, like you can cook it up and then keep it in the chiller for 3 months or something and still use it. So
Okay.
it runs the gamut. The problem is usually that you end up buying in extra when you have a sudden surge, which is what we're currently dealing with. Anyway, I can't talk too much about the details because of confidentiality and whatnot. But
And let's face it does
yeah.
get a bit technical.
Everybody's starting up again, so it's going to be busy for a little while. But then I think it'll calm down. If there's any truth to what the management has been saying about how it's going to be a bit of a lean season coming up, then things should quiet down on the work front a little bit. I hope, because I would like to get some semblance of normalcy back.
Not happening.
So I have been endeavouring to play some Final Fantasy XIV where I can. Unfortunately, these other two chumps still won't play with me. So I've taken up attempting to learn White Mage, attempting to learn a healer class, and I am very bad at healer classes generally. The only games in which I have been ever even passable at healing have been Secret World, albeit a version of Secret World that no longer exists.
I think does it still exist?
Actually, I think they are running a legacy server, but I'm not quite
yeah.
sure how you actually. I'm not actually sure how you go about playing on it, or how you even get the client.
It's
I don't
amazing
know how you do that either.
Yeah, it's amazing. They managed to somehow, without really changing the game all that much, suck the soul out of it.
Well, it's sort of like they took the soul out of it and then they replaced it with adverts for micropayments.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I was all right at healing in Secret World, and I was barely passable at healing in WildStar, but any other MMO I've just been completely trash at it. So I've been trying to pick it up. Unfortunately, Final Fantasy XIV is a rather unforgiving game for learning a new role in a lot of ways, especially if you've got a tank who has no regard for the fact that you're a newbie healer, which is often the case. In fact, more often than not the case. Which is sort of why I was hoping one of these guys would come back and play so that I could learn on a tank that doesn't have a death wish. But at any rate, I've been trying to do that. So I've
what makes you think I don't have a death wish?
Yeah, remember how we played in WildStar?
Well, that was a bit different, I think. WildStar was had a different attitude to the way you were supposed to play
it. Don't stand the fire, don't stand the fire, don't stand the fire!
It was also not a good time for me to be playing video games. I had a lot of stuff going on then.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm up to level 45, I think, which means I'm in the phase of the game where the game tries to get you to run around in your underwear a lot because of giving the chest piece of your class gear last. And there are a lot of chest pieces in Final Fantasy XIV that informally serve as your leg coverings.
Yeah.
Meaning that the actual leg piece is just underwear. But
especially for caster gear.
yeah, very much often the case with caster gear. At any rate, I'm getting the hang of it. Trying to read a bunch of stuff about what the generalities of healing in Final Fantasy XIV. It seems that there's quite a number of people who are sort of like low key unhappy with the general direction of healing, because it's doing the thing that seems to happen in a lot of games with healing, in that you end up with a sharp divergence in healing styles to either really hardcore betting the farm on regens or really hardcore betting the farm on shields. And you see the same sort of thing happen in World of Warcraft quite often as well, where oftentimes you'll end up with like Resto Druid will just be a super dominant healer, or Discipline Priest will suddenly become mandatory back when Discipline was a shield-based healer, as opposed to now where it's a goodness only knows what it's supposed to be.
Wind Waker Monk. Last I looked, it was Blizzard saying, "Oh, we don't want Wind Waker Monk to run into melee range and punch things. We don't. That's not a healing model we want to endorse."
No, Mistweaver is the
Mistweaver. Yeah,
healer.
sorry.
They had a stable hybrid, which was referred to as fist weaving.
Yes,
because
and it was a
based
lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. A lot of people liked it very much. Unfortunately, it's very hard to balance around, because you are basically there are now two healing paradigms, where you've got a healer who is able to deliver DPS and a healer that is not able to deliver DPS, and they need to be balanced the same.
Yeah.
So I think that there's probably some happy medium that can be accomplished, and they need to basically, in the case of World of Warcraft, they need to let go of the idea that they know intrinsically what is the ideal gameplay form, and rather than deciding whether they're going to execute or permit the existence of hybrid and alternative emergent games play styles, they need to actually take it on board as a challenge to find a place for those things that people like, instead of telling people what they do and do not like. But in the case of Final Fantasy XIV, it has always been the assumption that the healer is a slightly weaker DPS that can also keep the group alive. That's just the way it is. There are very few fights in the game that, when properly managed, healing is the main activity that you do. You should be balancing your gameplay around constantly doing damage to the boss and interrupting that process when the group needs saving. So it's pretty, my understanding that it is that it, under circumstances where you're not expecting a group-wide party buster, you generally don't even bother to top people off. You just keep people alive enough to not die in the next hit. That's the model for Final Fantasy XIV. Therefore, my assertion that it is rather unforgiving. But apparently, there is this divergence into an overemphasis on regen, which is something that the White Mage is guilty of, and an overemphasis on shields, which is something that the Scholar is guilty of. And Astrologian is apparently, from what I've heard, a bit of a red-headed stepchild, although I'm not up to date on what has changed over the last expansion.
Really looked, it could choose to be one or the other, but couldn't really do both at the same time.
They have got Nocturnal and Diurnal sects.
Yeah.
And Nocturnal makes you somewhat of a shield-based healer, and Diurnal makes you somewhat of a regen-based healer, with regens traditionally being much more mana efficient, and shields allowing you to preempt things with more of a buffer than you do with conventional healing. Because, I mean, you do, as a healer, you are expected to be able to preempt what's happening.
Yeah.
Once you know a fight. But you've got more of a buffer of safety with a shield-based class, but it's less mana efficient. But at any rate, because it's, splitting the difference between two optional game modes, it's just not quite as effective at either. And I don't know if they've gotten their utility to the place where it's going to make up for that. But I'm not really that clued in on the fine details, because I have no intention of playing in-game raids or anything in Final Fantasy XIV. I don't have the time for that. But I'm just trying to get a grasp for how to actually play it, because I'm atrocious at healing. And I keep letting tanks die, because as you're leveling up, you move your buttons around where you think is going to be most convenient, and then at the crucial moment, you forget which key you bound them to.
Yep.
And the tank drops dead. But Yeah, most of the groups that I've had have been fairly patient with the fact that I'm letting them die. Albeit they probably would not die if they had instead been patient with the fact that I was just barely out of healing range or whatever.
Oh yeah,
that sort of patience might serve better.
That's something you'll get in every MMO. Everyone will expect you as the healer to miraculously be in 6 places at once.
Yeah, I don't have any particular desire to pardon me, to make healing my sort of the primary go-to role. I still prefer tanking in the first place and DPS as a second place. I don't really have that healer mindset, but I would like to be able to do it in a pinch and not completely fumble the ball when I was called upon to do it.
You should.
And I've never been able to get to that level in an MMO before.
We need to find Pim and have him give us the insight on how to be healer. He had the brain for that.
Yeah, he was quite good at it as well.
Yeah.
Like even though he wasn't, his HPS wasn't necessarily as high as some healers that we had, but his efficiency was always way higher.
I would happily take him over literally any other healer we had ever in any of our guilds.
Yeah. I remember during our STO days, those few raids we did go on, he pretty much solo healed those, while I sat in the corner and fumbled with really awkward mechanics.
I never played STO.
Not STO, the
Old Republic?
Get the right one.
Right, SWTOR.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish that I had that capacity, but I don't. I want to get to that level where I can at least not let the group die if I need to heal something. And also, I figured that if I was a healer, then if one of these chumps plays a tank, then we can get instant queues, which would be good.
I will probably never roll a tanking class. It's just
I'm
not
working
something
on
I can
it.
ever see myself doing.
I've been running around Limsa Lominsa for the entirety of ever since I logged in during this show, trying to figure out where the stupid gate to the airship is.
So you're manually using an airship?
I need to turn in a quest there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the airship gates are the first place that I forget where they are because you've got to use an elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the city, so it'll probably be in a bar, in one of the bars.
For both Limsa and Gridania, you go through the pub.
The Gridania one's the easiest one to find.
It's the pub downstairs.
The Ul'dah one is a nightmare to find.
Yeah, Ul'dah, forget it.
Ul'dah is a horrible city to try and navigate to begin with.
It's a big circle. You'd think it'd be simple, but no.
I don't have a problem with that one. I have a problem with Limsa Lominsa and everything about this stupid city.
I don't mind Limsa so
much. You make another city your home then. Like I usually use Gridania as my home base in Eorzea, but the other cities, like I probably spend the most time in Ishgard. But Kurgane is also quite an interesting city because it's got a huge amount of complexity to the back streets, but all the primary stuff that you need to access is very easy to find. So I sort of got the best of both worlds like that. Thankfully, none of the cities in FF14 that I've encountered are anything like the Chaos City in Warhammer Age of Reckoning.
It was enormous, but it was empty.
If you knew where you were going, it would still take you half an hour to walk across the city.
Yeah. It was big and empty for a reason, but it didn't make for good time spent accomplishing stuff.
It was certainly ambitious. It was ambitious. Like, if they had a team that was like 3 times the size that could fill that city with content, that would have been spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever would have finished it all. There was still some things I liked about it. Like I liked the fact that public events would start up at random in the city and you could go and participate in them. Mm-hmm. If it weren't for the fact that the city was so large that the population was too spread out to do that efficiently, then it would have worked a lot better. But
remember Silvermoon and the Exodar?
No.
I actually made Silvermoon my home base for a while simply because I got sick of seeing other people.
Yeah, there is that appeal.
They made these giant-ass cities because, they're the new city, so everybody's clearly going to flock to them, right?
Nope.
Ghost Town.
At least Silvermoon, there's reasons to go there. Like, it's a really nicely laid out city. It feels big. There's stuff to find in there. X is done. Nah, it's all
Yeah,
purple.
but the thing is that everybody rolled a Blood Elf and then was scarred for life by having to run around Silvermoon.
Yeah.
Because when you have to go everywhere on foot,
It
that is
takes
not a fun
ages.
city. It's not a fun city at all. And they should have known what would happen because they introduced Shattrath in the same expansion.
Shattrath is probably the worst city. It's
It is the most bland city imaginable. However, it is also the most convenient city in the game
it is.
because it's bland.
Because it's
basically,
bland and
once
everything
you've
is just very easy to find.
once you've got a flying mount, there's basically no more efficient city to move around.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm not going to try and say that I've had a huge amount of fun playing a healer because I don't have the mind for it. It's work for me playing a healer, but it's work that I want to accomplish because I want to have that skill set available to me in MMOs. Because normally I flee the healing role in a terrified fashion because I'm no good at it. And like, if you notice the thing about the two healing roles the two healing games where I got passable as a healer at being Wildstar and Secret World. In Secret World, it was about healing bullets.
Mm-hmm.
So all I had to do was invert my thinking about health bars. And in the case of Wildstar, like your healing and your combat abilities as a medic didn't differ in any way except for who you were trying to get into the AoE area.
And people would inevitably run out of it anyway.
Yeah, inevitably. And some there was I think there might have been even some abilities that could do double duty and would heal anybody who needed healing and damage anybody who needed a good damaging. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so learning an orthodox healer is a bit of a challenge for me, and it's particularly things like I don't think I have played since vanilla WoW. I don't think I've played a class that requires anything resembling mana management. Because I played a warlock in WoW originally, and I played Affliction though. So once you got up to about max level, you never had to worry about mana ever again. And I played a warlock, so you could always just use somebody else's mana pool if you had to by life tapping. So generally speaking, mana management is something that is way out of my area of understanding, but something that is very, very important in FF14.
Mm-hmm.
So I have picked White Mage, which is the most mana efficient with the most tools to keep your mana flowing. Because I know that this is going to turn into an absolute disaster if I don't pick the easiest thing that I can.
Yeah, Scholar can get a bit fiddly, especially when you start managing Aether flows.
Yeah, although in the higher levels of White Mage, you get lilies and blood lilies.
Yes.
And I'm not really sure how they work. Although I've heard that at various points in the game, I don't know if it's true currently, that the blood lily mechanic is probably best to just avoid paying any attention to it. Because your attempts to use it are going to cost you more efficiency than you just pretending it doesn't exist.
Oh dear.
Because it's it's work to get it to work. Much like opening the Dragon's Eye on the Dragoon in Stormblood was a nightmare to get to work. Like you had to climb to the top of a mountain before you could use your best DPS, and I think the Blood Lily's a bit like that. Like by the time the Blood Lily gets out, you know what? You could probably just spam Holy a bit more and get the same amount of effect.
Yeah. If not, the fight's already over.
Yeah. But yeah, there's certain things that you're never going to have to bother with if you're only interested in small group content, and small group content is all that I'm ever interested in MMOs these days. Raiding is too hard.
Yeah.
It's just too much work.
Too many people.
Way too much work in preparation.
It's much more demanding in Final Fantasy XIV than it is in WoW. Like I've played Final Fantasy XIV at sort of like a casual raid level, and I've played World of Warcraft at a mythic raid level, and casual Final Fantasy XIV raiding is harder. That's been my impression.
Yeah, casual WoW raiding is you go in, you turn your brain off, and you get loot.
Like I've had enough of spending hours wiping on Twintania to know that there's nothing that's fickle in World of Warcraft. Like Twintania is like Vale, except lag also matters. So even if you're not stupid, you'll still kill the group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy the fights though. The ones that I've been able to participate in, like they're really cool, really spectacular, and you get to see them all via the story anyway for the most part. So I'm just not that fussed.
Yeah.
Like all of the trials, you get to see them. You won't get to see, Omegascape stuff or whatever it was called. And there's lots of cool fights in there, but I can just watch them on YouTube. Learning them is too hard.
Yeah.
20 levels late, I went back to try and fight Nail Deus Darkness with my guild. We went in about 3 or 4 of us fighting the boss 20 levels lower than us, and it completely nailed us to the wall over and over and over.
Admittedly, one of my favourite pastimes when I'm just doing something mindless is I'll just turn on the soundtrack to Alexander. Such a cool.
Yeah, I haven't participated in any of that. That raid has a lot of cool music, which is good because most of the bosses look boring. But,
yeah, the Sentai boss looks ridiculous.
The Sentai boss has the goofiest music ever.
It does.
But,
it's a big jazzy mashup of all the other boss themes. It's great. It gets a redux apparently in Stormblood somewhere too.
Yeah, going back and doing old raid bosses is something that still presents a challenge to a certain extent in Final Fantasy XIV. As I said, like we went back to a 20 levels earlier boss and got crap beaten out of us repeatedly. It wasn't just like, oh well, we forgot about this mechanic and died. No. Those mechanics are serious business, and they will give you the business if you don't pay them their due respect.
These mechanics are designed to kill you.
Anyway, I've done some playing of that, and I generally regard Final Fantasy XIV as a good time killer. And so on the mobile game front, there's been a bifurcation, thank goodness, in the amount of effort required. So FGO is currently doing a strictly story-oriented event, just a short event, but it doesn't require any effort whatsoever. It's called Murder at the Kogetsukan, and it's basically just a murder mystery, which deploys 1 chapter every day. And once enough chapters are out, there will be a poll where players can vote on who they think is going to be the culprit. And if the majority get it right, then everybody will get 10 Saint Quartz, which isn't a huge reward, but it's better than a kick in the pants.
What is the print screen button in Final Fantasy XIV? Quickly.
The print screen button?
Or the screenshot button? Got
it. F12?
It's usually F12 in most games.
I got it.
But the story is kind of daft in the way that most Type Moon stories are a little bit daft, and even when they're trying to be serious, they can't shake off the daftness because ultimately it's still a setting where King Arthur was a woman, and so was virtually every other male hero of note. But it's still a fun little story and a very different type of activity compared to what you do most of the time in FGO, because you go in there and there are no requirements to enter the event. You don't need to have done any particular other content. You don't need any of your own servants. For the handful of battles that you have to fight, they supply you with the servants to do it at a fixed level, and none of them are remotely challenging. They're just to move the story along. And so it's sort of an interesting thing, although the character Ava is an incredible thought. But
like we needed more thoughts in FGO.
I don't think FGO needs any more thoughts. I think that's overly supplied with thoughts. But
one was plenty.
But yeah, it's a fun diversion. I'm enjoying it. I've been looking forward to each chapter at the end of each day. When I get home, I'll play the newest chapter to come out. They're not exactly high literature, but they're still sort of fun. And the good thing about that is that this time this event is overlapping with the rerun of Iris of Light and Dark, which is on Azure Lane, probably the most important event that I missed, because there is a very, very, very powerful couple of weapons that can only be acquired from that event and are event limited. And they are, while they're not like game-breakingly powerful the way some things can be in some gacha games, they are slightly more optimal generalist choices for a lot of things. Like, there are a lot of situations where you're looking for the right gun to equip on a destroyer, say, and it's just, oh well, if you just want generally the best one, just equip that one. rather than trying to tune your fleet for particular purposes. If you just I need to drop a gun on this thing because I want to use it to get it some levels. Let's just jam this piece of equipment on and it'll do the trick. And there's another, and the other gun, of course, is a gun that can only be the only gun that you can really practically use on the battleship Jean Bart. Like, she's got skills that are related to use of that particular gun, and this is the only place you can get it. So, yeah. It's the only place you can get the high tier version of it. You can get the low tier version of it in other ways, but the low tier versions of the same gun are strictly inferior to the high tier ones.
All right,
I forgot what I was going to ask you about guns.
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 I was going to ask you about bow waifu guns, and it totally just fell out of my brain.
Also, we said the G word, but demonetized.
Oh yeah. If you're wondering what I was scrambling for the screenshot button for, by the way, I posted it in live show chat.
Oh dear, dare I look?
It's wholesome. It's just really weird.
Oh yeah, that's the parasol party.
Wait, what now?
There's a parasol party in New Gridania at the moment. It's just people that are lining up with parasols. I don't even know where you get a parasol from. Maybe it's in a moat or something. But yeah, it's so yeah, the event is more or less along the same pattern as most boat waifu game events. So there's nothing of particular note, especially since there's an older one, so it doesn't have any new mechanics or anything. I've had poor luck with the gacha this time, which I suppose I had to expect since I had good luck with the gacha the last few banners, like really good luck. The last few that I actually really tried hard on. But I did get Jean Bart, which I didn't have, and Jean Bart as a battleship, once you've gotten her good gun from this event, she is extremely good for just loading into a level which starts with a boss and just one-shotting the crap out of it. Because I think that she's like either the only one or one of two battleships that starts with their main gun shells loaded, so and can just fire straight out the gate. And she's got enormous first shot damage. What were you saying, Fern?
Just a turn one nuke.
Yeah, basically. So she'll appear on the stage. She's got huge bonuses to the first shot she fires on any given stage, and she starts with a shot loaded. And so you pick the gun which has the most damage out the gate, which is her specialist one, and you just fire at whatever. Which is really good for clearing Siren mini bosses, because in those mini boss stages, the mini boss is the first thing that appears, and so you just go boom and wipe it off the map. So she's probably the most useful of the ships. There are a couple of other super rares that I haven't managed to roll up that are good, but none of them are game breaking. So if I don't get them, it's not really disappointing. Like, it would have been really disappointing if I hadn't rolled Tashkent during the Soviet event, because she's just such a spectacular destroyer. But these ones are not remarkable enough to be too concerned if I can't get them. They also introduced an interesting gacha, like a limited time gacha, called the Wishing Well. And basically, it gives you the list of the gachas, like the equivalent to FGO's story mode gacha, the baseline gacha that has all the normal stuff in it, that's not event limited. The Wishing Well gacha is that, except you can nominate 2 ships of your choice to be the rate ups.
Rate up is still a lie.
So you can basically, it's a create your own banner event. So I haven't rolled on it yet, but I've nominated Taiho and one of the submarines, I think, because submarines are something that rarer is better most of the time, like 99% of the time. And I need more rare submarines because I think I've only got 2, and you need 3 in a submarine fleet. But Taiho is a aircraft carrier, probably the most criminally poorly staffed aircraft carrier in human history. I think that the way Taiho's history goes is the submarine, United States submarine Albacore, fired a torpedo at it, and it caught fire, but the crew was so badly trained that they didn't know how to manage the fire. So
that sounds like
sunk.
An oversight.
It just sunk straight out from a single torpedo's damage. It was supposed to be a state-of-the-art aircraft carrier as well, but maybe it was towards the end of the war in the Pacific Theater or something, and they just didn't have the staff to train. So yeah, it was Taiho's a dramatic embarrassment in real life history. Her
Mhm.
in-game character is sort of like a more possessive version of Kiyohime.
Oh, that can't be good.
No, she's a crazy. She's one of the crazies on the cast of characters. But yeah, I need a single strong aircraft carrier for IJN fleets, because normally I use my favorite two, which are Zuikaku and Shokaku, but they have to be used as a pair, otherwise they're dramatically less powerful.
Mhm.
But Taiho doesn't have a sister ship to enable her power. She's a bit RNG based. Her skills tend to either be lackluster or completely blot out the skies with aeroplanes and leave nothing standing, depending on how the dice roll. But yeah, I kind of just want an IJN carrier that can be used independently of a sister ship, because it's a reasonably important mechanic to have reasonable amount of air power, even if you don't particularly major in using aircraft carriers. Having the ability to maintain air superiority just benefits your fleet in general, so it's usually a good idea in difficult maps to have at least one. But yeah, so I kind of would like to get a hold of her for that, but I'm not going to focus on that banner. Because Taiho will always be in the list of the normal shipbuilding queues, because she's been added to it permanently now. Whereas the event limited ones are event limited, so
Yeah.
only get them now, and then eventually they'll move into the permanent gacha, but that might be in a year's time or something.
Unlike
But,
FGO, where they're gone forever.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. FGO is doing the 10 million banner soon, and I've got a humongous list of stuff that I want to roll on this year. And this banner's just come along, and it's like, this banner's got Kyo Lancer on it. You know, you need to get to NP5, right? So it's a
gonna
bait
get you
banner
crazy.
designed to sop up all of my quartz. But yeah, I haven't decided if I'll roll on that yet, because Skadi will be probably June or July,
Mm-hmm.
and Skadi's a meta breaker. First Emperor is also a meta breaker. He'll be later in the year. There's Summer Jean, who I would like to roll for. There's Shitonai at the end of the year, toward the end of the year, and Halloween. There's Benienma at New Year's. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with my quartz, because everything wants some.
Yeah. They want
I
us
think
to
I'm
buy
going
more,
to.
that's what.
I think we're going to forego the upcoming Guda event banner entirely. Like, it would be nice to get Okita Alta, but I don't think I'd actually use her for anything really. So
How weird is she? Because regular Okita's kind of weird.
Okita Alta is a existence that was crafted by Alaya, I think, to serve as a one-use counter guardian based on Okita, but she isn't Okita. She's something else. But uses Okita's spirit origin as sort of a prototype.
Okay.
But she's just a bit of an odd duck, because she's got a character that she's based on, but she didn't live a life as a person, so she doesn't really have the same sort of behavior as Okita.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know much about her story. Presumably it'll be revealed at length in the upcoming Guda event, which is one of the more serious ones.
Serious as far as Guda goes, anyway.
Yeah, it's only serious by Guda standards.
Yeah. Which means it's going to make absolutely no sense anyway.
Yeah, but the general division seems to be that the first two focus on being silly, and the second two have a bit more story to them. Yeah, because there are four Guda events in total, I think, that tell that story arc. But that story arc is being adapted in a manga now, Fate Type Redline.
Oh, jeez.
But that's a serious retelling. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not a silly retelling, because the Guda events, as portrayed in FGO, are actually basically a spin-off of a gag manga from Koha Ace. Whereas Fate Type Redline is a serious retelling of the Imperial Grail War in Japan around the time of the war. So they're like Nazis and stuff.
Yep.
Because obviously.
Because, of course.
Do they have sunglasses?
I do not remember. I will have to look
Bro
that
Hitler.
up. I don't think Bro Hitler specifically appears.
They didn't. I
But,
don't know what they were thinking with that. It's like, oh, it's Hitler. How do we make Hitler less Hitler? We'll give it.
I'm pretty sure saying the word Hitler also gets you demonetized.
Oh yeah, it does. But we're already demonetized because we said hello. So, you know.
But, yeah. So, yeah, the gacha games that I play are rolling along, still continuing to consume all of the dregs of my free time that don't get invested in anything else in particular. But, yeah, I just hope that things can get back to normal so that I can have normal free time instead of having to subtract 2 hours from it every day due to overtime. But I've also got to go and have my eye checked again because they've botched the surgery twice. I worked out that the odds of that are something like 1 in 1111 or something.
Huh.
That they would botch it twice. So I'm kind of annoyed, but hopefully maybe third time's a charm. Maybe they can correct my vision on the third try.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm getting awfully frustrated with this whole debacle at this point. Anyway, I'll call it good there.
All right, we should then probably take a break.
We should. So we'll be right back after some Muzak. we're back.
Yes, we are.
Indeed.
So, Vol, you got anything else I can try and derail?
Yeah, there was one thing that I recalled is that I did attempt to watch some new anime because, you know, I felt like hadn't given it a fair shake. But
This current
at the
season
end,
is so blah.
I still didn't feel like giving it a fair shake. Okay, so one of them that I tried to watch, Princess Connect Redive, just don't watch it.
It's that bad?
It's not bad. It's just that it smells extremely strongly of gacha, and
Yee.
it's just bland. It's just like I watched a couple of episodes of it and I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel love. I didn't feel
nothing.
anything.
No,
It was just-
no
it was- I
random
was-
desire to reach for your wallet to spend it on virtual waifus.
No, I was an empty vessel after the fact, much like the main character.
Sounds like
But,
gacha game promotion
yeah.
then.
The other one that I watched was oh my goodness, is there an English name for this?
Probably not.
Okay, where's the Japanese name? The Japanese name ends in an ellipsis. I don't know if that's because the name actually ends in an ellipsis or whether they ran out of space. Otome game no Hametsu flag shika nai akuyaku reijo ni tensei shite shimata.
The one where they get reincarnated as the villain of an Otome game and they try to avoid all the bad ends?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an English name for that one. Give me a sec.
At any rate, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was quite entertaining and quite endearing, all told.
Yeah.
They
What the hell is
it is structured like an Otome game story, except it's sort of like, well, I mean, it's in a world where the world is based on an in-universe Otome game that the main character plays before having her fateful encounter with Truck-kun.
Yes. And it's always Truck-kun. Here it is.
Yeah, she literally had a fateful encounter with Truck-kun.
Here it is. The name is My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom.
Right, yeah. So she was really fond of this Otome game, and she'd borrowed it from a friend and had managed to finish 2 routes and had gotten stuck on one and stayed up all night trying to get through it and was unsuccessful, ran out the door late for school and got hit by Truck-kun.
Got isekai'd.
Yeah, got isekai'd. So she wakes up and she's in this another world. She doesn't have any of her memories. She doesn't know that she's been reincarnated. And then she has an accident. She trips, hits her head, and regains her memories. And after a while, she realizes that she's sort of spacing out because she doesn't know what's going on because suddenly she's come back to herself, so to speak. And by the way, she was an incredibly horrible, typical aristocratic brat before having this accident and having her personality reset to the previous life. So that's what people are accustomed to dealing with from her, was that she was a horrible person. And this is when she's like, 10 years old or something. She's quite young. Then she realizes that she's managed to get engaged to the prince because the prince feels like it was his responsibility. She got herself hurt and scarred her face. And, a scar on the face of a noble girl whose only real value is who she can marry makes her a difficult marriageable prospect. And the prince, feeling responsible for this, decides that he'll become betrothed to her. So she's become betrothed to the prince, and she has a scar on her forehead, and then realizes this is the backstory of the villainess in the Otome game that she was playing immediately before she died. And
oh yay!
So she goes through. She meets the various other members of high society and realizes that they are the other Bishonen from the story. And so her character, Katarina Claes, the character that she's now occupying the life of, meets a very sticky end in several of these routes, one way or another. And so she sets about desperately trying to change things as much as she can to avoid these occurrences. But what she never seems to twig to is that her initial actions when she realizes, who she is and tries to, basically recreate the person of Katarina Claes to be a different person from the evil villainess, very early on, she totally fails to realize that she's invoked the butterfly effect and nothing is the same anymore. She
Okay.
fixates on the fact that she's still engaged to the prince, and the prince in the Otome game is very unhappy with his engagement to Katerina, because Katerina holds the fact that she injured herself over him for years and years and years and basically makes him her personal slave. She, of
But-
course, doesn't do that because she's trying to avoid the bad end. But what she doesn't realize is that the prince is still engaged to her because he wants to be, because she's a nice person now. And she is convinced that she's on her way to the bad end because the prince won't break up with her, because when she first meets Katerina in the game, Katerina and the prince are engaged. So she's trying to break off the engagement and completely failing to, because her approach to doing this is to be nice. So yeah, she's basically a total Dummkopf when it comes to these personal relationship matters, and
Yeah.
this carries over to all of the other characters as well. So instead of managing to just change their circumstances, which she does very easily, because a small change tends to have a large effect in these types of stories,
Yes.
she assumes that she's on the dead end route unless she keeps trying really hard, and basically inadvertently woos the entire male cast and then the entire female cast of their siblings and fiancés. So
Okay, this is just going silly.
she doesn't realize any of this. So she accidentally manages to win over the prince's twin brother, her adoptive brother, her the prince's brother's fiance. She makes friends with a girl and then basically wins her over as well. And her brother was one of the protagonists in the Otome game, and it seems like she's well on her way to winning his heart as well. And so they're all trying to. They all realize that she's completely ignorant of their feelings, and so they're all trying to wage sort of a subtle war behind her back over her affections without letting her know what's going on, while she basically barges about like the tomboyish idiot that she is.
Right.
So it's sort of a very fun, endearing sort of story in a silly, very unserious way. It's absolutely not like a serious style isekai story. It's very much just a rom-com that happens to also be set in the isekai setting.
Guys,
Yes,
just
the-
sounds like dumb
primary
fun,
conceit.
really.
It is. It's very much a dumb, fun one. It doesn't require any kind of mental effort or stress in order to consume. So if you just want to consume a fluffy and idiotic rom-com in an isekai world, it's very easy to watch.
Yeah.
There's not much to remember.
Did get a little distracted there. My anime list just showed me something completely nonsensical. Fairy Tail. It finished. So what's left to do but do a spin-off where everyone's superheroes now?
Huh.
Uh,
Okay.
Does it...
Yeah.
You know it's going to be the same thing. Lucy's going to end up as a MacGuffin.
Yeah, but the Fairy Tale I wanted
So-
to like, but I felt like Fairy Tale really lost steam after a while.
They had
And
so
inspired-
many really bad filler arcs too.
Yeah, and I feel like they didn't really know where they were going, and they basically ended up repeating themselves over and over again with ever increasing stakes. It was basically Bleach all over again,
Yeah.
except the artist actually bothered to draw the backgrounds, which Tito Kubo never bothers to do.
And it actually ended at the appropriate point. Once the story
Yeah.
eventually got there.
Was it actually allowed to end?
Yes.
I really wanted to like Bleach, because it had so much style, like aesthetically. It was just way more stylish than all its competitors, in my opinion. And
Mhm.
people have differing opinions on that. And like, there are people who actually like One Piece's art, but
One Piece has very simplistic character designs.
but yeah, I always liked the art in Bleach the most out of those, and
Yeah, how many super forms does someone need, though?
yeah, it's true. I also forgive Kubo a bit more than I might forgive other artists because he's a huge Fate fan.
It all comes back to whether they like Fate or not.
Yeah.
A lot of it does. I'm not going to make any apologies for that.
All right, Ari. Then, what have you been doing this last time period?
So the start of this week, I managed to wrap up my initial playthrough of Persona 5 and was speeding through on fast forward with, Izanagi no Kami Myriad Truth spam through the dungeons for my second playthrough to get to the super bosses in Persona 5 Royal. And I had to put that down for a bit because it was starting to make me absolutely lose my mind. Because you can only show me your true form. You'll never see it coming so many times in a row before your brain just starts turning to mush.
Gotta ask, actually, with Persona 5 Royal, is there more than one battle music now?
They've replaced You'll Never See It Coming as the main battle theme with a equally catchy song, but with less memorable lyrics.
Okay.
So I can't actually tell you what the song's big sticky line is.
But you need to have memorable lyrics so that you can get them wrong.
Exactly.
I know we gotta burn our bread and reach out for the tooth.
You gotta reach out for the tooth, yeah.
No, I think my favorite song to mangle, I think, is probably Sai's Palace.
Oh, Run from the Chicken Man?
Run from the Chicken Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better than that.
It does not.
Yeah.
It's better than Persona 3's battle theme, which just basically devolves into na 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 na.
Oh man, I had a really good Mondegreen for the female battle theme, and I totally forgot it.
Yeah,
but anyway.
The one in Persona Q is just as bad as well, but I can't remember what that one boiled down to.
Yeah, so I have now finished the game and can actually kind of comment on the story. My controller has got hooked on the side of my chair and has wound itself around as I've spun in the chair, and that's not doable.
No.
Yeah. So, so I finished the game now. So the third semester is about 15-20 hours of new content if you take your time and 100% it. They do a lot for pancakes.
Okay,
in this new semester. So
he needs it badly.
He really did. His story was really anemic before.
Pancakes, in addition to his entire new social link being a proper social link instead of an auto social link,
bad one.
They do a lot for Pancakes as a character relative to other Sona social links, and he doesn't take me off whenever I see him anymore. In fact, if you take him into Mementos in the third semester, he's back on your team and he's in the, spoilers, Black Power Ranger outfit the whole time, because you already know what's up with him in the third semester.
He's already got his second Sona.
Yeah, he starts with Loki.
Yeah.
And he can eventually get an ultimate persona with Hereward later. But unfortunately, he's completely useless in combat because the only thing he can do is debilitate. And spam Megidala, which is nice, but that doesn't hurt bosses.
No.
And runs him out of SP in like 3 seconds.
That doesn't sound like they thought this through very much.
No. And his ultimate ability is just not very good either. I forget what it is. It was so dumb. I never used it. And Makoto also has AoE debilitate as her ultimate ability. So she completely squashes whatever Pancakes could do. But I did like how you're driving around Mementos. At least twice I heard the line them talking about, so remember that Pancakes thing? And he's just like, shut up. Don't talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. It's clearly something he's still salty about.
And as are the writers, I assume.
So, do you, story-wise, do you just brush off all the people that he's killed?
It is left in the air if he's even still alive in the third semester.
It could be
heavily implied. It's heavily implied if you 100% the game that yes, he is, but it's not confirmed. So he could just, because shenaniganery is going around in the third semester, and because the third semester starts to end with a reset button back to the original Persona 5 ending, and then averts it at the last second by having everybody remember what happened in the third semester. It's up in the air whether or not Pancakes was alive the whole time or not. So the third semester is how canon it is a maybe. It at least impacts the main cast, so I'm not going to jump on its butt too hard for retconning what happened out of the timeline. So it just doesn't happen for the off-screen characters and the normal social links. But all the party members still remember it and still know what happened. And it also ends with the corniest Metal Gear Solid 4 like punch out back and forth, mash the X button. You remember at the end of that game where Snake and and Ocelot were on top of the whatever and had their shirts off and were just punching each other?
Yes.
That's how the third semester's last phase is just Joker and the last boss doing that, but with their shirts on.
Oh, there's a mercy at least.
So that's not so good for the last boss's last phase. If it didn't have Metal Gear Solid 4 to just totally ruin the impact of it and make me draw comparisons, it probably would have worked better. But it just
things
doesn't
that
work.
have done that sort of thing better.
But the fact that Metal Gear Solid 4 exists,
yeah,
and that scene is so infamous, it completely ruined it. Now the last boss is a 5-phase boss fight. It's a proper last boss fight, unlike Deus Ex Machina Man.
Yeah, it's a terrible fight.
Was
that one.
a really bad last boss. He has a 5-phase final boss, with the first phase being the majority of the difficult part of the boss fight, the first 2 phases. And then you fight the next phase, which is it's really weird. The third phase is a gear check after you've already beaten the hard part. It's like, okay, did you actually have the appropriate levels and stats to beat it now? Or did you just find a way to cheeseball the first round? Which is really hard to do because all of its parts shuffle affinities the whole time. So you can't lock down weaknesses real easy. So I was fairly impressed with the last boss. The 4th phase and the 5th phase are just cutscenes, basically. But it was still fairly impressive to have a proper final boss instead of the robot.
Yeah, it was shiny. That's about it.
I mean, the only... Go ahead.
Oh, no, to finish what you're saying first.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It wasn't very important.
You're talking about shiny robots.
Yeah, that final boss being
Oh, I was just going to make a joke about how at least it's better than Satan Saving Christmas.
Yeah. I really didn't... There's one of the two things that I wanted to ask about this is to do with that. But the first one that I want to ask is, do they write in this whole third semester in a coherent fashion?
They do.
Does it make sense?
So the way they append it to the story, it's not just tacked on to the end. The counselor character and the gymnast character, who's also a new party member with an absolutely busted ultimate ability, are written in so their social links happen throughout the entire year leading up to the third semester, and they're the catalyst for this new semester.
Okay.
So it works a lot better than just tacking it on to the end. And they will interrupt time and fill in days with events with them and Pancake, where there would previously be free days before. So you get whole day events with that group to properly integrate this third semester into the story. So you can still tell it was added on after the fact, but it's not as bad as it could have been.
I see. Yeah, the other major question that I had about it is, do they actually bother to, now that they had the opportunity to do a do-over, do they actually bother to address any of the questions that they didn't bother to address, even though they raised them originally? Like,
yes,
serious consideration of things like whether or not they are just infracting on other people's free will in there.
Not as much as you and me would like them to, but yes, they do try to amend that, because the antagonist for the third semester is not a cartoon villain. He's a dude that has a seriously warped idea of what's good for all of humanity and is genuinely trying to help people, but has completely lost his marbles.
Who was the third boss? Third antagonist, I should say.
And nobody, it's Kaneshiro, the bank, but nobody.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody
remembers it because it was so completely lacking in impact.
Yeah, but the third semester boss is not a cartoon villain anymore. So you still have all the cartoon villains leading up to the third semester, but this guy is just a guy that is royally misguided in what he's trying to do. And they have a much more essential question where everybody's actually kind of happy with what he's doing, but it's still incredibly wrong and not real.
Yeah, because there were two primary things that really annoyed me about the story of Persona 5. It's why I rate it lower than 3 and 4 by a pretty significant margin in terms of writing, is because two things. Number one, they just take it as a given that rebellion is good for its own sake. Like, fundamentally, rebellion is a good. That's like a principle that they just accept throughout the entire story.
Mhm.
And the other part was the fact that they raise all of these questions about whether or not they're just transgressing on other people's freedom, and then they never bother to even try and address them.
Yeah. So they go out of their way to alleviate that with this one, but it is still not addressed to the degree I would like them to, or you would like them to. But it's better than it was. Significantly better than it was, in fact, because all of the villains in original Persona 5 are cartoon villains.
Yes.
They are characters where this could not be raised as a legitimate question because they all need to just be shot.
Yeah, because they're all deeply, deeply horrible people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
the thing is that by the end of Persona 5, like, the take-home message of that game is you are the one who knows what is good for people, and you should tell people what to do. Like, that's what they're fundamentally saying, is that there is a right way to do things, and if people aren't willing to do it, you need to make them.
Yeah. You basically
And
force them to do it.
There's an
Yeah.
unbelievably dangerous mode of thought. But
Yeah.
you always know best, and anybody who disagrees with you, you need to give them a mental shutdown.
Sounds like the California mate thought.
Now, Newsom may need a change of heart at some point. I would not oppose that.
Well, a lot of the governors in the US are becoming cartoon villains. I mean, that Michigan woman, was it
Yeah.
Michigan? I can't remember.
And keep in mind, change of hearts, in my book, are worse than death.
Like
So
it's just that game had a really broken Aesop by the end originally,
Yeah.
is what I felt about it, because they weren't telling you anything good.
Yeah.
At all. They were telling you, number one, rebel against all authority because rebellion is good for its own sake, and number two, anybody who disagrees with you needs to go down.
So
Like, it was purely like the Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, might makes right route.
yeah, if people disagree with you, just beat them up until they agree.
Yeah, it
But,
was.
so did they try and actually explain how the changes of heart work? Like, they always
Oh,
left that right up in the air, and it seemed like, oh, suddenly they're magically different people.
they explained that in the original. You're just soul editing these people. It's worse than killing them.
Okay, so it's not, giving them a moment to reflect on what they're actually doing or anything like that.
No. You are editing that person's beliefs and core of their character into something fundamentally different.
Oh, right. So it was the vague thing they actually kind of left up in the air. Right.
No, like that was explained in the original if you ask the right questions to the right NPCs. You
No, I
are
guess
a
I didn't.
horrible person that needs to die for what you're
Congratulations,
doing.
You're editing people's souls.
Like, the only saving grace that the primary cast has is that they're stupid, idealistic kids who don't know better, and there's no authority to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only. Because I mean, the number one thing that is true in almost every JRPG, but Persona specifically, is that all the adults are useless and don't teach the kids any lessons.
Yeah.
And another thing I liked a lot was the new girl, Kasumi, doesn't join your party until the third semester, but will show up once or twice for a guest spot. And the reason she does it is because she doesn't agree with what you're doing.
Hooray!
This is wrong, guys.
You're brainwashing people. Stop it.
They're like, yeah, these people are really bad, but what you're doing is flat wrong.
You're not trying to... you're not changing their minds by coherent argument or anything like that. You're just going in and editing their brains.
And unfortunately, no amount of nodding my head furiously and hitting I agree would get her to join the party sooner.
It's because you're wrong.
So I did monogamy her the first time, and there is a in-game Chivo separate from the normal Chivo list for doing the proper route, which is where Sojiro gives you his chocolate on Valentine's Day. And terrible things happen to you.
Naturally.
But that came after doing a solo romance route with the new girl, because I'm like, yes, you are the only one with your head screwed on right.
You're the only one who actually raises the ethical question of what we're doing.
Maybe we shouldn't brainwash people.
Maybe we should.
Maybe that's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like Persona 5 as much. Like, they just didn't think through what they were saying by the story at all.
Mm.
It was such a strange approach, was to have the entire main cast be the villains, but nobody will ever recognize them as such.
Against even more cartoony villains.
Yeah, I often got the feeling while I was playing, when they first started, they thought of that, and then somewhere along the line somebody went, but waifus.
Yeah.
And that's probably exactly what happened.
Oh dear.
Do not underestimate the power of the waifu.
But they do a lot to address a bunch of the issues as much as they reasonably could without totally rewriting the whole dang thing. And you would have to pull a Persona 3 portable to do the rewrite route, and that's just not feasible in most scenarios.
No.
And they weren't willing to go quite that far. Persona 3 Portable getting the chance to fix literally everything with a complete rewrite was a one-off thing for even the SNT franchise.
Yeah, I still would have liked it, though, if they put in a better explanation as to how things actually worked, so what you weren't doing wasn't just brainwashing.
Well, here's the other funny thing. I was royally hacked off at them because they teased a whole bunch of meta story stuff that ties into the whole Personaverse. Like stuff with Azathoth, Nyarlathotep, and Philemon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all just red herrings.
Boo.
Every bit of it. I was so ticked off.
You have no needlessly petty.
Persona 1 and 2 are still not in the same continuity.
No, Persona 2 is still they're both part of the universe, but it's like the Fate deal, where Persona 1 and 2 happened, but they may not have happened exactly like they happened as presented in the games. And Persona 2 Eternal Punishment did happen exactly as it did, but that's because it happens on a slightly different timeline than Persona 2 Innocent Sin. But Persona 2 Innocent Sin is still canon, because all the events still happened in another timeline that is made present and aware to the world in Innocent Sin, or Eternal Punishment. It's very complicated. But that's yeah. But they're like teasing Azathoth and all these Persona 2 or Personas that we haven't seen since Innocent Sin, and like, oh, we're finally gonna get some answers on this. No, Azathoth is just the name of the final boss's persona. Like, no, Hastur is literally just a trash mob. Okay. Like, Biggie is just a trash mob. Okay. No, you say so.
No, we're just going to sit here and, bathe in your tears.
You have no idea how mad I was, because they teased all this stuff like it was going to lead to big reveals, and it was all just red herrings.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bit of it played out.
That's why I'm very skeptical on these supposed bits and pieces about Persona Scramble, where there's people clinging to the tiniest, very thin threads that Persona 1 and 2 will get their canonical appearances here, but I very much doubt it.
Persona 1, as it happened, has been written out of existence because it's tied to the Innocent Sin timeline, which, although it exists, that timeline is overwritten with Eternal Punishment in the story of Eternal Punishment.
Oh, right, okay.
So it happened, but the current universe isn't aware that it happened.
Fun.
Basically, the protagonist of Innocent Sin done goofed. and had to petition Philemon to come hit the reset button.
Right.
That's how we get Eternal Punishment in the new timeline. So they did happen, they're just not in the same timeline.
And then Half-Life 3 was confirmed.
Yes.
That's probably why Half-Life 3 never happened.
And it's not because it's nailed to a door somewhere.
Yeah. So there is a new super boss I'm working my way towards. Unfortunately, you have to get all the way back to the third semester on New Game Plus to fight her.
Oh, joy.
And you have to beat Carolyn and Justine, who were the old super bosses.
And that was really tough, if I remember.
They didn't have as many rules as the other girls did that you fought, the other attendants, but you had to kill them both at the same time. So
I've never actually attempted any of those final bosses. I usually don't have the motivation to go through the whole game all over again. But I seem to recall Elizabeth pretty much had a specific series of turns that you had to use if you wanted to beat her.
Elizabeth was very fine on the margin. You had to dang near cut yourself optimally with fusions and the right sonas to not get totally whacked by her. But Lavenza has... I looked at her rules, and her rules are horrifying. And I'm excited to die many, many hours to her. Because those rules are absolutely ridiculous. You have to do stuff like inflict technical damage to her and break a certain damage threshold every round.
Jeez.
So, and then you have to get a critical hit. So you have to find ways to guarantee yourself a critical hit and still break a damage threshold on her on another phase. And there's like 5 different variants of this rule set for all of her phases.
That's just
So-
nuts.
So she should be a lot of fun.
All right, so I suppose we just come to the big overriding question that we didn't really get to answer last time because you were only halfway through it. And is it worth purchasing for the upgrade?
The answer is going to depend entirely on how much you like the Persona franchise.
It's not a fake game.
So if you are a casual or passing fan of the franchise, I would be wary. If you have little interest in it, don't bother. If you've already played the original, if you just played it because people were saying, "Oh, this new Sona game is really cool," but you don't have a personal interest in SMT or Persona, I wouldn't bother. If you really like, okay,
Go on.
if you like it or are a big fan of it, though, it's pretty worth your purchase. It's worth shelling out at least $40 or $50 for anyway. I don't know about full price right now because you do have to chew through a lot of stuff you've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that I think that the bar of enthusiasm would have to be very, very high because of the sheer opportunity cost of investing in all that stuff.
Yeah, even
Yeah,
fast forwarding, that's still 8 hours of fast forwarding and buying the most expensive DLC of Persona, which you get for free. So you could just spam your way through it.
Yeah, it's not
end.
just that though. It's like the other games that you're not playing and all of those hours that you are fast forwarding through stuff you've done before. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like a steep cost. If I could pay $25 and get an upgrade to my existing one and go through on New Game Plus, then it would be a shoo-in.
Yeah,
But for a full
that would be
price
the better
second
way to
game
do
that
it.
I've got to start over with no save data, then there's just no deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would wait for a sale.
Yeah.
You do get all the old DLC for free, so there is that. So
Well,
everybody
for
gets,
free for the price of buying the game again.
Yes.
yeah. So they are at least kind enough to throw you a bone.
It's not a very big bone. It's not a
No.
very juicy bone either.
But you get all the swimsuit sets for all the underage girls.
Yeah, so you can go to jail.
Yay, jail.
Yay, jail!
Yay,
Yeah, there is
jail.
a
And not
it's,
metaphorical jail like you go to at the final chapter.
no. You go to literal jail in the final chapter.
Yeah, you also go to literal jail in the final chapter.
Yeah, so it's a hard recommendation. It really is because there's a lot of stuff you have to go through again. Unless you're a fan of the series to some degree, I can't recommend it. But if you are, I think you're going to enjoy what's there because it does go out of its way to answer a lot of the questions and present a story that really needed to be in the base game.
All right. I might pick it up at some point and give it another go when I feel like going through it. Like, despite all the really wonky ethics that was going on in Persona 5, I did still really like the game and the story.
Well,
it's-
I think it's the finest execution of that style and
Mm,
their construction, albeit a little bit too easy.
maybe a
but,
little easy, yeah.
You gotta, yeah.
It's just I found the things that were problems for the story for me were not just niggles. They were like this is flagrantly undermines the fundamentals of the story that you're trying to tell, and you don't even seem to realize.
Yeah.
It had a lack of weight compared to previous SMT or Persona games. Normally those games are very heavy, is I guess a word to describe them. They give you a feeling of, oh, well, you know, what we're doing is really important, has heavy repercussions, and we should really pay attention to it. regardless of what world they're using. But in Persona 5, it was just like, oh, these guys are bad. Let's go stop the evil politician.
Yeah,
And you're going on a slip and slide down this heinous, not moral slope, and nobody ever acknowledges it. Really,
at least the ethics for 3 and 4 were fairly straightforward. Like 4, it was, oh, there's someone kidnapping the people. Let's go rescue them and find out the identity, and then hand it over to the police. Maybe.
And then it's like, oh, we brainwashed Burger Man. The public loves us for brainwashing Burger Man. Oh, Burger Man died? Oh, now they hate us for some reason.
Yeah. No, he
you
didn't.
know, I think that I still think that Persona 4 was the tightest execution story-wise. There was a lot that I liked about Persona 3 in certain respects, but I felt like the stakes got almost unbelievably large by the end.
Yeah,
I understood what they were going for, but I understood what they were going for, but their focus eventually became fight the cosmic horror, not fight the inherent failures of humanity. But I feel like the fourth one managed to keep on target.
Yeah.
Yeah,
whereas,
I think
5 is, okay, we don't like this person. Let's go rewrite their brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was unbelievably ends justify the means. Like, it was so utilitarian, but nobody seemed to realize that. And the other thing is, I felt it was very strange to involve children in a story like that, because that type of, while it's very idealistic, that type of sheer utilitarian ends justify the means thinking is not something that the average normie school kid is able to internalize. They normally feel feelings about things.
It's not normally an attitude you see in heroes either. It's usually you see that in the villain.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the most realistic kid in that story is probably the Pancake Kid, simply because he acts like a stupid kid, an over-emotional brat.
Yeah.
And he behaves the way an over-emotional brat who has come into too much power would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
none of the main cast do. They take it as a matter of course. Oh, now we'll declare ourselves righteous and we'll go ahead and do all these things and everybody will praise us for it.
Yeah.
I love that Pancakes doesn't have to try in the third semester. He's got the evil Power Ranger suit the whole time, and he's just like, yeah, let's just kill him.
I mean, he's got that option, I suppose.
Like, you go like, no, I just wanted to fight this thing to weaken it so I can talk to him. He's just like, whatever, man, I'll be over here. Let me know when you're done. And he just pieces out and walks away from you to let you fight the monster by yourself.
Oh, gee, okay, thanks.
and he's literally sitting in the corner watching you. He's
you can
still
see him
on your
sitting there in the battle?
No, you can't see him in the battle, but you can see him go and lean against the wall before the battle starts. And right when it ends, he just walks up to you. He's like, you done yet?
So, let me know when you're ready to kill him.
Are you quite finished?
Yeah, like, he's just so done with this. So it was a ride. I really enjoyed the third semester. I think it was worth my purchase, but I'm one of the bigger Sona fans you'll find out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a statement.
So that's about the things I'm going to bring up with that. When I eventually beat Lavenza, I'll talk about her as a super boss and whether that was worth the fast forward trek through the game again. And by the way, if you want to 100% the game, this means get all the in-game Chivos and not just the trophies. You have to beat the game and get the normal ending as well. So make a save where you don't have the counselor maxed out in his social before the end of Sai's Palace, and then fast forward through that, and that unfortunately means fast forwarding through the boat.
The boat.
Can you fast forward through the boat?
There's
a lot of pointless faffing about in the boat.
Thankfully, you can easily overlevel and insta-kill everything with Ryuji's new OP passive. So,
oh, okay, good.
Especially on New Game Plus, where your EXP is quadrupled from the start of the game because you have What's His Nuts' passive active the whole game.
Yeah.
The NPC.
Also, if you could, I suppose you could just go and farm the Reaper during flu season again.
No. They fixed it. You can't do that anymore.
Ah.
Oh dear.
But that was hilarious.
It was. But that was apparently an oversight because they fixed it. I can't believe that.
I'm not really surprised that it was an oversight.
Oh yeah, it was.
I'm surprised that they bothered to fix it though, because it's sort of like a legendary loophole.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
actually very handy just to catch up those last few levels if you were behind those last couple of chapters.
If you really don't want Morgana in your party,
You don't. You really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, great if you want a heal bot, but yeah.
I mean, you can get him debilitate now from the jazz club. So he can be your debilitate bot, but Makoto can debilitate the entire enemy party.
Yeah. I just used Joker as my primary healer for the most part when I played it.
Oh, you can get salvation on 2 other party members now.
Nice. So you don't need Morgana at all.
No, he's officially lost his job.
Great.
And yeah, Cuck the Cat is the best subreddit for everybody just posting that moment when you get to rank 9 and Anne's confidant, and they just have all the photoshops of to cuck the cat or to not cuck the cat.
Cuck the cat.
Yes, that is always the answer.
That is the correct answer.
That is the answer they always give.
All right.
So that's that. I did a few other things, but we're running long anyway, so I'll save them for another time if they become relevant.
You've harvested the finest cream of PlayStation Now, whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess I can touch on that real quick. Me and Abo was like, we haven't played any games in a while, and I'm like, yeah. So we both had a PS Now sub up, and so we went to the streaming service and we downloaded a bunch of games.
Okay.
And we're queued up a bunch of games to be streamed. And what we actually found was, if you are playing a game with few enough players in multiplayer that you're both playing on the same data center, it's actually better connection than if you both have the game on your own console.
Really?
Yeah, because the 2 players are in the same location.
Yeah.
So the game will execute in one place and then send that game to the individual people. So if those 2 people are in a similar enough location geographically, the performance is closer to being at the same console.
Yeah, it cuts out half of the travel time for the
crappy netcode
for the communications.
So it was a corner case, but it was a particular use case that I hadn't thought of, where streaming is actually really superior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were playing Arc System Works games, and Arc System Works games have fairly robust and good netcode, but they have a little quirk with it where at the start of every match you have to let it buffer and figure out what the deal is between the 2 people who are connecting.
Yeah.
At the start of every match, and you always have that like 5 seconds of a projector slideshow where you have to watch the intro play every time.
It's really bad when you're doing, particularly between the United States and Australia, like opposite sides of the planet. It gets really bad.
Don't skip the intro is the thing with Arc System Works fighting games, but otherwise they work pretty good. If you're using streaming, you don't have that. If you're accessing the same data center from the same area of the world, you can skip the intro every single time.
I have to have a closer look at PS Now then.
So now, for me and you doing it, who knows what data centers it would connect us to?
Yeah. Therefore, we should do some science. So
this could be a disaster.
It could.
But I just want to point out, the first game we tried was Central Fiction, because I hadn't played through Central Fiction yet. And the very first title I unlocked, I think I sent it to Vol. I gotta find it.
Yes, you did.
It was... I gotta find it. It's lost somewhere in all of our racism.
I didn't say anything racist.
Today.
I did. I said a lot of things that were probably considered racist.
Jeez.
But, so, let's see. Let's search title.
While he's searching, I just saw something that I wrote here. Apparently recently, someone in New Zealand graffitied on the Chinese embassy, F the CCP and Taiwan #1.
Oh, we're really getting demonetized now.
Yeah, and you'll probably get a kill squad turn up.
Oh, yeah. So I played Lychee to show Abo some of the stuff that Lychee could do because he was asking about her. The first title I unlocked was Booby Lady Hero.
There you go.
So I was that I was rather impressed. That was the first title I unlocked. But just as an anecdote, that game was localized so rushed and poorly. Most of the titles are still in Japanese,
But not that one.
but not that one. They made sure to get that one.
It's
But
important.
Everyone
you know?
loves the booby lady.
It really killed my enthusiasm for the series, though. The fact that they stopped localizing them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they completely did a half-pie job on it.
It-
Because
it-
the localization for the first two was really good.
Yeah, all the way up to Chrono Phantasma, it was really good. And then all of a sudden, just for the finale of the series, we're not going to localize this one.
Yeah, we're just gonna half-ass it at best.
It was never very popular. I don't really understand why. I guess it was in a sort of a red-headed stepchild position between the easier ones and the harder ones.
Yeah, it wasn't the super easy to localize El Cheapo casual stuff like Deep Dragon Ball Fighters or Cross Tag Battle, but it wasn't Guilty Gear, which has niche appeal and
Yeah.
a much more niche appeal than BlazBlue. BlazBlue was always that weird love project that the developers clearly really liked making at
It's a
Arc
shame.
System Works, but you could never ever sell in the West.
Yeah, it's a
I
shame.
guess,
The production values of Guilty Gear are just top notch these days. So
Yeah,
it's a
I
shame
want
for
them
really
applied
everyone.
on Fate Fighter.
More Melty Blood.
But on that note, I feel like probably the reason why I became so attached to BlazBlue compared to the other two is that the lore of BlazBlue is sort of it's on the same sort of tonal level as the Fate universe in terms of absurd overlapping timelines and general nonsensical bullshittery going on in the background. And has a similar sort of tone of it's trying to be serious, but it knows it's not going to be able to keep it up for very long.
But it has
Yeah,
Talkaka shouting, "It's the booby lady," as loud as she can.
that really doesn't help. But yeah, like BlazBlue, it's like Ragnar is trying to stop the demon, but he is actually the demon, and he's being helped by a
But-
vampire lolly.
He's scared of ghosts.
Scared of ghosts.
The Valley or the Sea-Nu, pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the booby lady, and then there's Talkaka, and
and then Makoto loses her tail and has to go find it because somebody kidnapped it while Platinum's looking to collect more booby cards by taking out all the large-breasted characters in the cast.
yeah, this is canon, by the way.
I feel like the hearing Noel get assigned the nickname Lacking Lady was almost physically painful. Like I felt that blow to her ego. Like yes, your name is Lacking Lady from now on.
Yeah, that's just a punch right to the nose.
Punt right to the non-existent boobies.
Yes.
So,
So yeah, good luck
So-
trying to actually understand what the story of BlazBlue really is.
I think we just surmised it pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
With a quick rundown of major events.
Time loop bollocks, and there's the BlazBlue, which is a thing, apparently.
And Talkaka.
Also Talkaka and boobs.
I wonder if Makoto ever found her tail.
Does it matter?
She has it kidnapped in her latest gag reel. That wasn't
Isn't there
Central Fiction.
there's like some visual novels and stuff you can get as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the BMs, and then there's the manga that are also canon. The manga characters in Central Fiction are in Central Fiction now. So you
Are
have,
they all like probably different time loops or something?
Or something.
I'm not sure how many of the time loops are actually sequentially canon to each other.
Mai's is canon. The other dude's is not. Well, it is, but it's not because time loop shenanigans. The one,
You may not realize this, but that didn't explain anything.
It really
well,
didn't.
it happens in canon, but it doesn't because the time loop got reset. But it still happened in the loops of time. In Blaze, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's just a headache. Don't try and...
Remake's Hard is way funnier anyway because Mike can read people's minds with their tongue.
What? No, never mind.
And this leads to all kinds of shenanigans.
Yeah, okay. Let us move on to something maybe a little bit less silly, shall we?
But yeah, so that was a thing that we tested. Also, Nitro Plus Fighters is the dumbest fighting game you've ever played. Ever.
Oh dear.
It has so many characters in it that
It
are
has-
from.
Yeah, from Unlocalized Garbage. It has Sabai in it, though.
Saber.
Yeah, that it does.
She she's also incredibly generic and has like nothing of note as a character. She's really good, but all she does is swing an invisible sword, use invisible air, and if you get level 3, shout Excalibur.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Like I'm usually fanatical about Fate stuff, but anytime it's just like, oh, and Saber is doing a cameo, my enthusiasm sort of drops into the negative zone.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you know she's just going to be just there.
Just swing the
Yeah.
invisible sword. There's some gusts of air, and then Excalibur at level 3.
Yeah.
The standout surprise character. Me and Abo are both not fans of Supersonico. In fact, we both groaned when we both randomed her in a mirror match when we were doing random.
Well, it's because Super Sonico has exactly one. No, she has 2 character traits, and they're both the same.
Yeah. Well, there's a hidden character trait we didn't know about because the other 2 get in the way. That are not her assets or her earphones. She loves cats. And
Okay.
she does not actually do any fighting. She just is surrounded by like 5 cats that are all assigned to the different attack buttons. And she's holding a cat, which is also assigned to an attack button. And
This
so
sounds
all
like
of her
the best character.
all of her attacks involve sending all these kitty cats everywhere. And when you have a mirror match of Supersonicos, there are just cats all over the screen doing these completely dumb moves.
This sounds like good fun. Also, cats.
This was accidental good fun, and she was the breakout character from that game.
But that's not hard considering none of the characters are memorable in the slightest.
No, the only reason Supersonica was memorable is because we both knew nothing about her other than she was obnoxious. And it was just, oh, look at all these cats everywhere.
They're just
I
fleeing
know-
cats at each other. This is great.
I know that there's like Senran and Kagura characters in there. Not that I know any of them especially well.
One of them has a cell phone that she flashes and freezes the screen for 20 seconds, but neither player can do anything.
What's the point of
To
that?
what end?
Is it just to
You both
annoy?
get- I have no idea what the point of it is. You both get 1 bar of super meter at the end of it, but the animation takes like 5 to 10 seconds to finish.
Okay.
And
I'm
neither
assuming
player
it's
can move during
interruptible?
it. No.
Oh.
You summon her she's an assist character only. You summon her, she does her thing, and the screen just stops for 5-10 seconds while her phone does magical swirly stuff.
And then suddenly you get super meter.
Yeah, and then both players get 1 out of 3 bips on their super meter.
Right.
It's really dumb.
It is really dumb because especially it's giving super meter to your opponent as well.
I think another one of them just comes out of the sky and does a butt dive.
But dive.
I'm pretty sure that it was just the game was built as an armature to put a crossover on top of, and not really. There's not really a lot of cohesion to it.
No. So
It's a Mugen game except with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
yeah. So the only thing even worth laughing at in that game is Mirror Match Supersonico. Because cats
Cats.
everywhere.
She's a walking meme.
Yeah, it's
She's a
not
walking
a very good game.
Well, yeah.
Other games on there, Arcana Hearts 3 is just Arcana Hearts 3. We played that with the new Super Love Max with a bunch of exclamation points for that. We found some fun things in that game, but none of them are really noteworthy. And then there was Titanfall, where we both got that on PS Plus. So we've been playing. I've been going through the campaign a little bit, and we tried some multiplayer today because he really wanted to play multiplayer with me. So
All right.
yeah, that's interesting. I might talk about that more next week because I've only spent like half a day.
I'm
playing
assuming
through it.
you're on Titanfall 2?
Yeah, Titanfall 2.
Okay, good. The better one.
Yeah. Titanfall 2 Standard Edition was free on Plus many months ago, and I've had it forever and just haven't downloaded it and played it. And he really wanted to play multiplayer, so I've been chewing through the story mode on that one very, very, very slowly.
I'm really actually disappointed by this month's Plus games. It's like City Skylines, which you should not be playing on a console. Play it on a PC, you plebs.
And then there's Farming Simulator.
And Farming Simulator, which is launch tractors into orbit using nothing but a chicken and a fence post.
Isn't it an ancient Seth classic?
I believe it is.
Speaking of, on a whim, I bought one of Seth's games after I watched a video from it because it looked fairly interesting. It was that synthetic game.
Yep.
Yeah, I've mentioned that on the show before that it'll look like fun.
So I bought it on a whim, and when I bought it, I got a coupon for buying it again. I'm like, oh well, I guess it's because it's supposed to be 2-player.
Do it again.
So I bought a copy for Vol, and then I got another coupon after I bought Vol a copy, and so I got a copy for Fern.
Somebody either didn't think it through or is a mad financial genius, and I'm not sure which.
They didn't give you another coupon, did they?
No. I honestly think it might have been just a registry error because I spent the coupon so fast the first time. So I think it was just supposed to go out after you launched the game if you bought it for the first time.
Right.
And for some reason I wound up with 2 after I bought the first one.
Not complaining. I got a free game out of it.
So I got y'all synthetics. I was only going to get it for Vol because he had it on his wish list and you didn't.
I thought I did.
I didn't see it on your wish list. Well, can't check now because it's in your library.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now.
So
yeah,
that's the thing that happened.
Yeah, we should move on to some news then.
Yeah, we should.
All right. I'm going to start off with something actually not only happy but very surprisingly happy. EA is not being EA.
Oh,
must be an accident.
Must be an accident.
There's some EA hidden in there. They just haven't revealed it yet.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Command & Conquer Furry Pack DLC. I don't know.
As Taylor would say, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes. So far, we've got bits and pieces coming out about the Command & Conquer remake or re-release. It looks great. It's up on Steam now, and it's up there for a decent price. It's like $30 Australian.
Mm-hmm.
They are releasing the source code of the original 2 games, and they're going to allow full modding with Workshop.
So you'll be able to lead your army of Shreks.
Yes, you could make yourself a Tesla Shrek army. Oh crap! Now that's going to be a thing, isn't it?
There was a Steam VR home environment that was just all Shrek's face.
VR chat is a mistake, by the way.
No, this is Steam VR, so it was done in Steam Workshop. Every chair is Shrek. Every floor is Shrek. Every outside your window is Shrek. The windows are Shrek.
The internet was a mistake.
Yes.
So, yeah, EA is not being EA. They're not, fleecing us for every dollar. It doesn't appear... It's not on their idiotic Origin service. They're actually openly supporting modding.
Well, what I've heard is that there are ex-Westwood staff on the team.
Oh, good. People
so
actually
it's
care.
Very much a labour of love for them. It's not just like, oh, we can make a quick buck out of this.
Yeah. So that's actually good. I'm just waiting for them to ruin it. Because it's
because it's only a matter of time, really.
Yeah.
They might. The only optimistic point here is maybe they hit a critical point where they know they ticked off their fan base so much that if they don't appease them with this at least a little bit, they're never going to sell another Command & Conquer game ever again.
Oh yeah, I think they may have realized that if they ruined this, no one would ever touch the franchise. Except, unless they turn it into a first-person shooter with the depth of a teaspoon. Because people apparently keep buying those. Ugh. No more Battlefield. No more Call of Duty. Stop.
Yeah.
So I think there are people that really like them, and I think it is sort of in terms of the theory, like they really want a realistic military type shooter, but that has resulted in them more or less grafting themselves into the microtransaction machine.
Yeah.
Because they're being drip fed the thing that they want a bit at a time and repeatedly reset and bringing out a new chunk. And what they want isn't wrong. It's just that they have inadvertently encouraged the wrong type of business.
Really is. I mean,
but it's also the single most profitable. Call of Duty is one of the most profitable franchises on Earth.
Yep.
In any form of entertainment.
Also, Fartnet. And I don't want to talk about Fortnite, so let's not. So Squid Game makes an embarrassing amount of money by fleecing children.
I tell myself that that it'll be a short-lived streamer-based phenomenon, but I don't know how short-lived it's going to be.
I'm actually really gleefully waiting for the day that Ninja's career collapses.
It should have already. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it continues to exist, because every time he does a thing, other than sitting on his Twitch channel or whatever. I don't know if he still uses Twitch. He's probably signed an exclusivity deal with some other bullcrap.
Probably.
He's just a cringy embarrassment anytime he appears in public. And
Yeah.
he is viewed as a cringy embarrassment, so I'm not really sure I understand why his career continues to exist.
Because he has a loyal following of 8-year-olds.
Does he, though? In my experience, 8-year-olds aren't really loyal to very much.
No, they aren't. They're distracted by the first shiny thing to come along.
As a loyal army of 14-year-olds.
14-year-olds I can believe.
No, 14-year-olds were watching the e-thoughts.
I thought that was like the 36-year-olds with neckbeards.
The other one's donating to the e-thoughts.
Oh, okay.
They're the ones buying the thought water.
Because you gotta have a bank account to be able to pay for the thought water.
So yeah, his whole career is just tied to a single game, despite what he actually says himself. He doesn't seem to realize it. As soon as that game goes, that's his career gone. Because by the time he tries to establish himself in another game, somebody else would have already moved into that position.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen before. People try to move between games. Sometimes it works, but usually it doesn't.
Yeah, because it's a dividing the fan base thing, right? Because you've got one portion of your fan base who will follow them anywhere, and other portion of your fan base who only want to see them play that one thing.
Yeah.
And it ends up splitting the fan base every time they move.
Yeah. Anyway, so where were we? Right, wafer thin first-person shooters. EA not being awful. I could be convinced to buy the Command & Conquer collection at full price, even actually, if EA is not going to be awful about it.
I'm still waiting. The other shoe will drop.
The other shoe is going to drop. I'm waiting for it. I'm not sure what form it's going to take at this point, but it's going to happen.
It's going to take the form of Shrek. But
no, I think I know what it might be. Subscription multiplayer service.
Westwood had its own one once upon a time, didn't it?
Yeah, very short-lived one, if I recall.
Yeah, but at any rate, I don't think that I'll be in for it simply because I'm bad at RTS in general, and I'm even worse at Command & Conquer RTS than regular RTS. So I think I'll probably stay away from it unless somebody comes out with a really cool mod that I can't pass up.
One of these days we'll have to put up Total Annihilation or something.
Maybe Dawn of War 2.
What?
Just
make a sequel to Dawn of War?
Yeah, a sequel to Dawn of War.
Actually, the guys, Frontier Entertainment's doing kind of classic RTS except with fantasy Warhammer. So that might be what it's looking forward to.
Yeah, but Fantasy Warhammer ain't what it used to be.
No.
It's got Space Marines in it now.
I'm trying to remember.
Space Marines.
And Frontier did Elite Dangerous and, Planet Coaster, so it's going to be DLC. That's how you pronounce that. Yes, it is. All right, who wants to pick next piece of news?
I was busy watching that tractor video that Vol linked in the.
Why? Don't do this to yourself.
I mean, I regularly operate a tractor, so I have to compare.
You have to realize how you can break physics with your real world tractor.
I mean, I have done some of the things that Seth pulls off in that video. Although it was more along the lines of my back wheel has somehow got out of the ground and my left wheel is stuck in the dirt. How do I push the front of this thing down into the ground with hydraulics hard enough to pop the back wheel out?
Magic, that's how.
Right, so I'll do this tiny news article, and tiny one that I posted because I thought it was so funny that it sounds like parody.
Okay.
In that Electronic Arts
God damn it.
have partnered with the Foundation for basically dealing with racism, sexism, and anti-Semitism in games. So the EA's Berlin office, they've partnered with the Amadeo Antonio Foundation. But the amusing thing about this particular foundation is it sounds on the surface like your typical social justice outfit, right? They just want to police people's politics to make sure that they aren't being misogynies. But it's headed up by Annette Kahane, who was a former agent of the Stasi.
Oh dear.
Like that was her job before she moved on into normal German political life and heading up these sorts of agencies. She was a member of the Stasi and was in fact considered to be an excellent asset, enthusiastic in the performance of her work.
Oh dear. EA, why? I mean, having all that sort of charity work looks great on the resume, but until people look closer at it.
Yeah, well, she was a member of the Stasi until 1982.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's like... Why?
You didn't look closely enough, EA.
For anybody who doesn't know, the Stasi were the post-Soviet Union East German equivalent of the Gestapo, basically.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
Except that they're arguably as bad or worse than the Gestapo.
I always envisaged them as like if the Gestapo merged with the NSA.
Well, they're essentially like the Gestapo were mostly police action type people ultimately, but this is sort of, they are very much, the Stasi had their fingers in sort of more clandestine stuff as well. So yeah, it's sort of like a KGB Gestapo hybrid type thing. But they were famous for encouraging people to inform on friends and family.
Oh, the KGB continue to maintain liaison officers at all 8 main Stasi directorates. Each with his own office inside the Stasi Berlin compound, and in each of the 15 Stasi district headquarters throughout East Germany.
Oh, EA. See,
yeah, so it's like EA just picks very strange friends sometimes.
They do. And now I feel silly for praising them, but because
you wanted the other shoe. I found it.
Oh no, this is more of a glove. This isn't the other shoe.
This is a whole boot.
This is a boot. it doesn't match. This is the other shoe.
This is a one-way ticket to the gulags.
It really is.
It's like, oh, EA's actually doing something good. The other thing must be a steel-toe boot that's about to fall on our head then, and it's called the KGB's going to come to your house and throw you in the cellar until they're ready to come give you, a nice bullet nap.
Bullet nap, eh?
Bullet-induced nap.
There you go.
I missed a word there. I was talking. My brain was going slower in my mouth.
Anyway, I just thought that it was funny because of how extreme it is. Like for a video games company to employ a former member of the Stasi to help police people's political views.
Quick, we need to connect to the German servers for Command & Conquer Classic and post some stuff there and see if they send the KGB to our houses, Fern.
Or we would just play as Nord.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can just copy some, of Mine Involves chat logs and paste it in text chat and general chat somewhere.
Which reminds me, actually, YouTube's been sticking these up in my face again. It's all these videos of, oh no, bloody Sarkeesian's shown up again, and she's shut up again.
Oh, recommendations, you mean?
Yeah. All these videos just saying in one title, even in the title, just saying, Sarkeesian's been making noises and she's already been slapped down.
YouTube, there's been a concerted effort. YouTube recently has been popping up with a survey that asks people, how's YouTube going today? Recently. So it'll just randomly appear in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you click away in any blank part of the screen, it goes away. But there's been a concerted movement to make sure you rate it 1 star, the minimum, whatever the worst rating is on that thing whenever it pops up.
It's because it's annoying. Also,
Yeah,
YouTube
because
is
A,
bad.
you're annoying me, and B, you're acting as agents of the CCP. So, you get what you deserve.
All right.
Speaking of the CCP,
Oh no.
so it is my job to make sure that China is laid blame for everything on this show. And Tencent's been up to some shenanigans.
I'm actually
Really?
really
Tencent? Up
enjoying
to
their
shenanigans?
shenanigans indeed. Although I'm really just been sitting back and watching their tantrum because Australia's called them out for their role in the Wu Flu.
Oh, you guys are getting bodied by the CCP,
No,
and by
it's
bodied I
it's
mean,
fine. You don't want our stuff? We'll just sell it to someone else. It's fine.
oh yeah, they're putting all kinds of sanctions on you and saying they're not going to trade with you and stuff after y'all said you're not going to trade with them first. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
You can't fire me. I
Oh,
quit.
we're not totally not doing this as a result of being under investigation for Wu Flu. This is completely unrelated.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nobody believes that.
How
So
have
the
the
China-
Victoria contingent declared it racist?
Well,
yet?
okay, except for the Victoria contingent. They declared it racist. But nobody listens to them.
So the Chinese virus that originated in Wuhan, China aside, China. Tencent, our favorite arm of the CCP to make fun of and call out for every little thing they do, has recently acquired the independent studio working on System Shock 3. And I think they acquired it 100%.
Acquired. Stole it.
Now, we do not know if this means that Tencent has bought the whole System Shock franchise, or if they only partially own Other Side Entertainment, but their money and their grubby fingers are all over it now.
So much
So
for System
anybody-
Shock.
Yeah, anybody that had hopes for System Shock 3, too bad. Tencent's now got its fingers all in it. They're going to put de novo DRM on that thing, make it go on the kernel level, and spy on you so you can sell your money to the CCP. All your input to the CCP. Because that's what Tencent does. They steal your stuff, give it to the CCP, and then sell it to interested parties called Silicon Valley, who will then use it to sell to advertisers to make more money.
For the CCP.
Yes.
Oh boy. So yeah, I actually kind of forgotten that this project was a thing.
Yeah, I had to because it had problems with funding and people keeping them on direction. But Other Side Entertainment reached out for somebody, and Tencent answered. As a smaller indie studio, it has been challenging for us to carry the project on our own. We believe Tencent's deep capabilities and expertise as a leading game company will help bring the franchise to new heights.
And it's nothing to do with the fact that they showed up our door with a huge sack of cash.
Yeah.
I really do understand that, for a small company, they really want to guarantee the next paycheck for their people and so on, but I don't think that they really grasp what exactly they are giving up for that mess of pottage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
It's a
Tencent,
shame, but we'll just have to wait for the next Bioshock.
which will also be terrible because Tencent has, need I remind you, 100% ownership of Riot Games, 80% ownership of Grinding Gear Games, 40% of Epic Games, 29% of Funcom, and 5% of Activision Blizzard, 5% of Ubisoft, and 5% of Paradox Interactive, among others.
Mm-hmm.
Are we seriously only left with E EA?
I hope not. I'll just stay indie, thank you very much. I'm also really sad to see Grinding Gear Games go, because they were like the Kiwis' big entry into the gaming market.
Yeah, it's sad, but there's no money for it here.
No.
I know New Zealanders don't really care about games, generally speaking. There's no big investment that's going to take place from here. So
Fern, I got a job for you.
Oh no.
You need to go find Team Cherry's house. And you need to stand out there with a gun, and any time you see a Chinese operative come near that house, you need to shoot him. Especially if he has a big sack of cash.
If he's got a big sack of cash, I take the big sack of cash.
Yes, and you make sure Team Cherry does not know about it.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue for them, but yeah, I don't know. You never know. Because like
I don't know.
anti-China sentiment in Australia right now is really bad.
it's pretty high in New Zealand as well, though.
Yeah,
That's the thing, and that it just didn't stop them.
let's face it, worldwide it is.
Everybody is strapped for cash right now, and Tencent is not.
Mm-hmm.
because Tencent has literally unlimited money.
Yes.
They're connected to the CCP. All they have to do is give them a phone call and say, "Can you furnish some dollary dues? We need to go buy out another company."
I think dollary dues are only legal tender in Australia,
They are.
but yeah, they are basically the CCP's internet entertainment company. They pretty much control the internet, more or less, in China.
Yeah, we've got Tencent is definitely the Chinese arm we are fighting the most in the entertainment sphere. We're going to have to find a way to take them down.
I don't understand why there seems to be this persistent line of thinking that we actually need them involved. I don't know why they think that the Chinese are legitimate, good faith participants in the market. It's abundantly obvious that they are not. So
it's a really hard idea to break out of some of these boomer neocon and neolib types. They just really believe that China being a player in the world economy is a good thing, and they've just been indoctrinated to think that's the case.
Their money is not real money. And I know it looks exactly like real money once they translate it into your local currency, but collectively as a market, you can't accommodate that stuff because it's not real wealth.
Unless they give it to you as liquid cash on the table in a briefcase, that ain't real money. They own part of your company. As soon as they explode, your company's value is going to start acting like a yo-yo, and then eventually tank.
Yeah, I really don't know what the future of the CCP looks like. I don't know where that's going. There's only a few different ways that it can go, and none of them are very good.
Yeah.
Several of them end in explosions.
Quite a few of them actually do end in explosions. Either internal or external.
It's okay. The show will forever be on the side of we need to take out the Tencent arm of the CCP. I think that is our primary target right now, as far as anti-China sentiment should be focused.
It would be interesting to see what happens if Tencent suddenly gets wiped out.
Well, I don't see how that's going to happen because
it won't happen. But just as a hypothetical,
they're backed by the CCP, so they are an extension of the party. They will only cease to exist if the party decides that it has no more use for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tencent is just one tentacle of the many tentacled monster. Unfortunately, the CCP is so dang big, each tentacle needs its own raid team to take out from various operatives across the world. I'm trying in my head to desperately build up the CCP as a raid boss fight in WoW.
I think you kind of did an alright job there.
I think since they've got a 5% stake in Activision Blizzard, we won't see that fight.
I think we kind of already have. Wasn't the last patch all about tentacled monstrosities?
I think we're stretching the metaphor a bit too far now.
Yeah, we are. Okay, moving on. Who's got something else?
Oh, anything else with China I can call out?
No, there's enough of that. China.
No, there's never enough calling out China.
China.
Right, what else is on the list here? The Denuvo saga.
Oh, jeez, hasn't this turned into a circus?
I have a headcanon on what happened in this, and I don't think we have any confirmation on it, but we'll do the article first.
I didn't read the article, I just know the story. So basically, in an after release patch for a variety of things, Doom Eternal was patched by id Software, and slipping in under the radar was the most invasive form yet of Denuvo anti-cheat.
Yeah.
Because apparently the backlash against Valorant wasn't enough.
Apparently not.
So this was inserted in there, and it's not as bad as the Vanguard anti-cheat that's built into Valorant in terms of the active problems that it causes, generally speaking. But it's still a piece of anti-cheat software with kernel level access and so on and so forth embedded in there. So it's looking more and more like this is going to be marketed as a standard thing that you do to hedge against cheating and messing with the code and so on. This was followed up by numerous reports of problems being caused by the addition of this anti-cheat. You know, something that the product had been sold without, and people had bought and installed under the agreement that it doesn't have Denuvo anti-cheat in it, and it's been added after the fact and it begins to cause problems. So there were people reporting crashes and performance issues and so on and so forth after the update. Now, it's difficult to tell the role that Denuvo anti-cheat plays in this, especially because it was dropped at the same time as a major patch. And so the line from id Software is that that patch is the source of most, if not all, of the performance issues that were reported, and that it's their own engineering on that patch that needs to be corrected. And they testify that the Denuvo package had passed their internal standards for being sufficiently stable and sufficiently secure. And that was what justified the addition of it in order to preserve the multiplayer mode, because they had apparently, with the previous Doom, the 2016 Doom, the multiplayer mode suffered pretty badly from cheating to the point where it almost killed it. I don't, as a person who didn't participate in that, I don't have any insight into whether or not that was actually the case, but that's what I have heard was the case. So there was a huge amount of backlash over this, because all that players can see from this is that suddenly, without my permission, they've added Denuvo to the product that I purchased from them, and at the same time, I'm seeing massive degradation in the performance. So there was a huge amount of backlash over this. People already primed for it because of Valorant's Vanguard anti-cheat, and so there were a lot of refunds were filed for. Steam was as good as can be with that, and they accommodated the requests for refunds because the reasoning being the product has changed since I purchased it. They've added an invasive software tool to it that I don't approve of. I didn't agree to grant kernel access to the software. So they were good about giving refunds and so on and so forth, but in a surprising move, especially compared to Riot, id Software said, you know what, there's a huge backlash to this. We thought it was okay, but since everybody hates it, we're just going to remove it.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing. They said that their long-term intent is to use anti-cheat, to have anti-cheat software in there, but until they can devise a method that doesn't result in a huge amount of backlash, they're going to hold off on this one and make it at minimum optional, so that it only needs to be on during multiplayer and you aren't required to give kernel access to the software every time you try and play single player Doom.
Honestly, they might have to make their own anti-cheat more than anything else, rather than
the thing is that ultimately that's the solution, right? The reason why these things have to have kernel access is because they're looking for sort of hardware level tinkering, right? My understanding of how this stuff works is pretty sketchy, but roughly you can envision something like an aimbot, right? You know, something that automatically will draw the position of an enemy on the screen for you and will lock your aim to them or whatever, right?
Yep.
One of the mechanisms that this works by is by figuring out what your graphics card is rendering and then force translating that into a visual representation so that you can see things you're not supposed to see, and so on. And then use that to map what your character is doing onto that thing which is supposed to be occluded. This operates at a very, very low level. Down at the kernel level is necessary in order to see that being meddled with, because it's going right to what is the graphics card, has it been instructed to render, and how can we use that to cheat. That's the way that a lot of these things work. And so you need low level access in order to solve that problem. Now, the thing is that that's necessary because you're using a blanket solution to all of these problems, whereas the more expensive way that doesn't involve having a blanket solution to these problems would be to engineer your method of going ahead with doing all of this rendering in such a way as you could develop your own in-house code to detect tampering with it that is part of the software itself,
Yeah.
rather than they're relying on a separate thing that is looking for generic tells of messing with the code or the drivers or the hardware or whatever. Because I mean, what we see in practice with things like Denuvo is it makes antivirus programs and so forth spaz the heck out
Yes.
constantly, because it's interfering with things that shouldn't be touched, generally speaking, and they shouldn't be touched by way of, you know, the cheat software is not supposed to touch it either. If I've never used cheat software, but I expect that it's like a lot of such you know, pirate type software, which invariably gets detected by your antivirus, and the antivirus will attempt to shut it down. So they're all operating on the same level, and there is an arms race in place there. But I don't think that these ready-made packages which give broad kernel access to a third-party piece of software is going to be the solution. Because I mean, sooner or later, the scenario is going to be that Denuvo is bought by Tencent.
Yes.
Because we need to go all the way back to that well. But it's entirely
a deep,
feasible, isn't
deep
it?
well.
It's entirely feasible, isn't it? That,
Oh, yeah.
you know, if you have a third-party company that develops all of your low-level kernel access thing that can derive information from the lowest, most secure levels of your computer's operating system, then, you know, there's no reason to believe that won't be an interesting target for. Let's leave the CCP itself aside. If you're an investor and you want to invest in a product that you know is liable to be incorporated into a large number of very, very expensive and profitable AAA games, well, it seems reasonable to invest in that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're all going to be competing to buy out your piece of software so that they can shove it into their game and free up their multiplayer mode from cheating. So from an investment perspective, if it becomes ubiquitous, it's a reasonable thing to do. And as such, if you've got ulterior motives, it's an even more reasonable thing to pursue.
Yes.
Also, this thing was made in like Salzburg, Austria, or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like a shell company for the CCP.
Yeah, but you suspect everything is a shell company for the CCP.
At this point, I think it's a safe bet.
Yeah, pretty much everything is a shell company for the CCP. This is what happens if you outsource all of your production of everything.
Yeah.
But my headcanon on this is way funnier. So, it involves Todd.
Oh, no.
Oh,
so,
boy. He wasn't involved in the story at any point, though.
He's got nothing to do with it.
Here's what happened. Todd gives it a phone call. So cheating almost killed the last game y'all made. We need to head that off at the pass this time. I found this great anti-cheat software on Google. I want y'all to put it in Doom Eternal.
It
has to comply. And as they're making it part of this patch, they never said, Todd never told us we had to keep it in the game, though. And so as soon as they get it installed and they eat the backlash, they're like, yep, look at us, guys. We're just going to remove this.
Oh, dear.
Wouldn't it be Pete Hines, though, rather than Todd the Liar?
Yeah, it probably would be.
It's always Todd in my head whenever Bethesda's involved.
Pete Hines is the worst one, though. Like, Todd's just like, he's their stock liar. But Pete Hines is the one who told the lie, and then he went on a podcast to have a cry about how people were mean to him for being a liar.
Yeah. Speaking of liars, I said to Vol, this new Steam event, I hate it.
Yeah.
It told me to go play Goddess.
Yeah, Goddess. Your favorite game.
Don't you want to build tiny houses?
I've played bad games. I've played awful games. And then there's Goddess. It's just abominable. Not just for what it is, it's for what it represents.
But you need those Steam Spring Sale Chivos, right?
What did I actually end up using?
Oh, I wonder
Eternal
if the Steam
Space,
sale was the reason I got those stupid coupons.
Maybe
it was something tied to booting up a game for the first time during the spring sale or something.
Goddess is still in early access?
Yes, actually it is.
Why?
Because they abandoned development. They tried to palm off development once they realized that they weren't getting anywhere after Molyneux lied and wandered off, as he does. So they punted off
Molyneux,
onto
tell a
another
lie?
company who had no idea what they were doing with it, so who turned it into Goddess Wars, and then just said, "Yeah, we're not dealing with this," and walked away. So, yeah, that's more or less, in very short, the story of Goddess.
Oh, but do trees grow in real time?
No.
But
Is
But
it a
Molyneux
game?
promised-
No.
but Molyneux promised.
I've gotten more fun out of idle clickers than I've gotten out of Goddess.
Fairly impressive when you're holding Cookie Clicker up as a higher standard than Goddess.
Yes. The
I think the
gameplay is
funniest
essentially
part,
the
I think-
same.
I think the funniest part about it is that as bad as Goddess was, there was still a tiny core of people who loved it, and then they made it into Goddess Wars, and all those people now hate it.
Yeah. There were a few people who were hanging on to the game just because of what it could be.
Molyneux and the cube. He promised us.
I still don't know what happened to that guy who won the cube. I don't think he ever actually got a prize.
Wasn't the prize just being like super powerful in Goddess though?
Yeah, it was. You were going to be the god of Goddess, which
The
means
goddess
you're
of
basically
Goddess?
well, yes, potentially. But you'd be all powerful in the game, and you get to dictate what direction the overall gameplay takes in terms of modifiers or mutators. But that never happened. He was also supposed to get a cut of the profits from Goddess, but that never happened.
Just Goddess made no profit.
Yeah. Goddess probably didn't actually make any money. And there was something else as well, but I can't remember it, and I don't think that actually... Well, actually, no, I think that kind of happened, but I can't remember what it was. So, yeah. Congratulations. You've clicked billions and billions and billions of boxes to find your mystery box full of lies. Well, it was actually full of Molyneux, so, you know, same thing.
I'm so glad that Fable ruined Molyneux for me before any of the box or the Goddess stuff started.
If Molyneux had kept his trap shut, Fable would have just been a generic fantasy adventure.
But no, it had the
With
Molyneux
Jack
hype.
Kirby.
Man. The hype.
The hype.
Everybody loves the hype.
I mean, the Fable games were okay. The first one was, I think, the best of the lot, but yeah.
But for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons. Anyone else lying today?
Wouldn't it be
oh.
easier to ask when they aren't?
Yeah.
For a second there, I thought you were asking if me or Vol were lying. I'm like, not that I'm
Probably.
aware of.
So we've got one last little thing I'll quickly touch on before we go, and that's from Kamiya, Hideki Kamiya, who we would ask for comment, but he's blocked us on Twitter.
Has he?
Probably.
I mean, I know he blocks an awful lot of people. In
He
fact, it's what
blocks-
he's most famous for.
He blocks everyone. So he's put out a confirmation basically stating that Bayonetta 3 is not cancelled, and no, we are not being bought out by Microsoft.
And then he blocked everybody
Then he
on
blocked
Twitter.
everyone on Twitter. One of these days, I
No, we're
actually
not
need to go
blocked by
back
him.
and finish Bayonetta 2. I just kind of walked away from it.
I didn't even finish Bayonetta 1.
Bayonetta
I
1
beat
gave me a headache, admittedly.
I 100%ed Bayonetta 2 and beat Rodan. Got
Why?
all the in-game chivos
Makes you
because
nuts.
I hate myself.
Yeah, there you go.
And
So-
oh, that was painful.
The story of Bayonetta, the first one, was complete and utter nonsense. It took me like 3 goes through the story to actually figure out exactly what was going on.
No, it didn't, because it doesn't make any sense to begin with.
Oh yeah, there is a trail of logic through it, but you've got to look really hard.
No, it's the worst time travel logic you've ever seen. The story literally breaks.
Exactly. If as soon as you accept that the story makes no sense and breaks halfway through, you can spot it. So good luck with that.
Uh-huh.
Bayonetta 2, I had no clue.
I actually at least kind of get what they were going for with Bayonetta 2.
Boob squirrel is what they were going for.
Well, I mean, they at least had a more fun rival than John. John was already okay, but
John was okay.
they had... But the Lumen Sage is just cool because he's basically White Dante.
He kind of is.
So
and then, the boob squirrel.
I have to like him. I don't remember the booby squirrel.
That's Loki. Whenever he's not actually walking around on screen, he's hiding in Bayonetta's boobage.
Oh, okay. That's why. That was not what I thought you meant by booby squirrel.
Yeah, no, he turns into a squirrel and hides in her boobage.
Okay. That makes more sense.
No, it doesn't.
I'm getting whooped by Volacel.
Well, I thought about posting it in the show chat and then thought maybe it wasn't safe to do so.
Probably not a good idea if you're thinking that.
I mean, it is relevant to the topic at hand and is first-party commentary by Hideki Kamiya, but it would also get us fired.
And blocked on Twitter.
Well, that ain't hard. That's like...
That's what he does.
All you have to do is walk in his general vicinity and you get blocked on Twitter.
So, yeah, there is more Bayonetta coming, which I'm grateful for. I like the games. They're still a lot of fun, even if they make absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's going to be hard going back to Bayonetta after Devil May Cry 5 because I'm going to be comparing it to Devil May Cry 5.
Oh, yeah. It's hard not to.
So, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, keep up the good work, Kamiya, and please be sure to block us on Twitter so that we can join the party.
If you want to be blocked on Twitter, all you need to do is reply to one of his posts.
Just say
in
hello.
A language that is not Japanese.
Yeah, ask him a
He blocks
question.
anybody who doesn't speak Japanese.
Yeah, ask him a question. He'll probably not answer it, but he will block you.
So, yeah. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, that's the thing. Also, Platinum Games at the same time has announced they have not been bought out by Microsoft. Those rumors are all false.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
So, I was actually mildly worried about that. When I first saw the news coming out like that, I'm like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah.
But no. Then they're still in Nintendo's pocket.
That's fine. Admittedly, though, much as it pains me to say it, if I'm going to buy one of the new generation consoles that are coming up, it's probably going to be the Xbox at this point.
I don't have any intention of buying either of them until there's a killer app.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a long time before I'm probably going to be in a position to actually want to buy one, but at the moment, the Xbox is the front runner.
Yeah, we're at a point where in console generations, game developers just ain't going to be able to make something that requires a Xbox or a PS5.
Nah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of advantages to the PS5 in terms of hardware. Like the thing is, the new Xbox has managed to present a very convincing white sheet in terms of these are the raw like technological power capacity of the hardware, but apparently the amount of heavy lifting that the PlayStation 5 can do for a developer in some of the new engines, like the new Unreal Engine and that's been previewed recently, is pretty spectacular. And what that ultimately means is smaller file size, which is going to become ridiculously limiting as the graphical fidelity piles up, because what the PlayStation 5 developers have bet the farm on this time round, as far as I can see from this 10,000 foot overview, is they're betting the farm on they're working on their fine details of how their system will process things from the solid state drive, that custom built solid state drive that they're bragging about. Mm-hmm. And ultimately what is causing things to inflate so dramatically to the point where you've got some games that are going to be pushing a terabyte soon is because all of that is high fidelity art assets that are uncompressed, because there's no physical way to decompress, read them out of the hard drive and into the RAM fast enough to have them be compressed. There's no compression that's optimized well enough to do that in the world. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to continuously inflate the file size to the point that it becomes unwieldy and unfeasible. One of the things that the PlayStation seems to be showing that it'll be capable of doing is that its ability to read, decompress, and then write to the RAM is staggeringly fast compared to everything else on the market, including PC technology. Apparently, allegedly. We've heard that line before. We've heard that line before. It's usually not true, but that's what has been reported, and that pipeline, that really high speed pipeline, is going to be is going to be very important in the way things are developed. I think that's going to be a lot of what will drive the upcoming generations of games is going to be to do with, how is the work getting done, as opposed to, what can be delivered on the home console. It's going to be about the console accommodating the development process such that games are still feasible to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're going to start to see things like 8K is not going to be a thing. I think we're going to see more and more stuff that is more sort of like 1440p upscaled.
Yeah.
Using lots of tricks to make it look good when it's upscaled, rather than just trying to brute force it with more pixels, because I don't think people care about that. When you get to a certain point, all you're seeing is that this is 30 FPS, isn't it?
Yeah, well, 4K
That's
ended up being a hard sell and ultimately just a completely pointless boondoggle, but so what's the point in going up to 8K?
I think 4K is going to be sort of the soft cap that people get to before it's the diminishing returns are too high. I think eventually people will reach that level where 4K is what they're willing to shell out for. But I don't see it going much further than that. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like that's really in the cards. I think upscaling technology is going to be the way that you're going to reach those higher resolutions.
Yeah. As technology shifts and upgrades, that'll probably change sometime in the future, but for now, yeah.
But I mean, like I said, everything is about those really high fidelity assets and what it takes to compress and decompress them. And if you have to keep them all decompressed, your game will be enormous, and your ability to actually handle those large chunks of data all at once is going to be really, really rough.
Yes. All right. My doggo is telling me it's time to finish up the show because we're running late, and she's trying to drag me out of my chair. Yes, hello.
Yes,
so
that is.
We should wrap up.
Right.
Because the doggo says so.
Are we on the doggo's timetable now?
Apparently. No, actually, I'm running late, so doggo is reminding me.
Oh, okay.
Hello, doggo.
So, all right. Email topic of the week. Tell us how much you hate the CCP, and how much the World Health Organization, China, and the CCP are evil. And I'll give you a cookie later if I ever meet you in real life. That's your email topic of the week.
Right.
If you seriously write an email about how terrible the CCP is and are genuine about it, and I ever meet you in real life, I will go to the dang store and buy you a...
Wolf, apparently.
All right, closing comments go.
Thank you, doggo.
And there you have it. I can't follow up on that.
Yeah, that's eloquence at its finest.
That's that right, doggy. All right. I think with that, we're done for the week, and we'll see you next time. Sayonara, bye-bye.